I got a bit. I'm just moving it up to the top of my notes.
Get your bit. Get your bit. Get your bit. Get your bit.
Are we getting this? This is gold.
This is podcast gold. Probably the worst intro we've ever had. Hi, guys.
Are we recording?
Yeah,
Is that the actual intro? God damn
Every intro is just us being like, are we doing this? Is this happening? We are sitting in these seats. We do have mics in front of us.
I'm not doing that because I think it's funny. I'm doing it because I'm that dumb. I need you to know.
Here's what everyone listening and watching don't know. We test everything, make sure everything's set up.
Yeah.
And then Warren and Trav just sit back and kind of just wait to see
what we do, what happens. They never tell us, okay, we're starting now.
There's no action, there's no rolling. No. It's kind of like we're recording, I guess.
It's kind of like we'll test everything and then we'll all go quiet and just see when they start saying something vaguely film related.
Yeah. And this is where we cut in.
Yeah.
But yeah,
which
hi
is
guys.
where we are now when we start saying something vaguely film related, which is, hi guys.
Welcome back
to Splice Splatter, the film podcast presented by the Jean Cocteau Cinema in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where classic horror
meets modern gore.
Oh my god, I love that.
I don't know. I feel like I do that one a lot. Modern gore.
I was saying I love that to the blood splatter shake that you were doing.
Yeah.
If you're watching the video,
if you're watching the video,
we're joined by several adorable new friends.
We are. A lovely friend of the podcast and listener, Her Shelves Elves, aka Rebecca, is a very talented crocheter and dropped off, even though they dropped off a gift for us, which is me and Siena are holding little emotional support. Yeah, blood drops.
Like a squeezy drop. And then we have a blood splatter hat for
I'm calling it a hat.
Yeah.
And then it's all crocheted. And it's funny because in the letter that they dropped off, they were like, I know you asked me not to just do this. And it was, you're right.
Sneak.
I did say I wanted to give you.
We wanted to support a local artist.
Because this is so cool. And so this might be.
And it's very satisfying. It's good for stress relief.
Honestly.
Yeah. Which is great.
This is the best
kind of a stressful episode, honestly.
Yeah. So these are little blood drops. For those of you watching, sorry, not sorry. I will be squeezing this whole time because I always get nervous.
Yeah, emotional support blood
drop.
Nervous. Yeah, which again, this episode, it's going to be, I think, maybe a little bit of an unusual one. I know that...
Oh, yeah, everyone voted for this one.
Yeah, everyone voted for... This might actually... Is this the first one we've done...
Like a full vote?
That's fully based on a listener poll? I think it might be. Yeah.
Which... Shall I kick off now of okay, so we're
bring
doing...
us through Al's emotional saga with what you chose for them.
It was quite the saga. Hopefully, let me know if my leather jacket is jingling. Maybe I'll tuck it in. If you heard that, y'all, I did not fart. I tucked in my jingly part of my leather jacket. We don't edit this podcast.
Al just has the spirit of Christmas.
That is just escaping my body. So we're doing American Psycho and the house that Jack built. And I think this might have been our first poll. So I want to do The Orphan last week is what I wanted. We left on that note.
Helped me convince Al that was a bad idea. Not because The Orphan is a bad film. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
But because there's a better pairing for it, and you were right. You came up with the best pairing for it, the bad seat. So when we do that, I'll take the bad seat. You can take The Orphan.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
But so I'm like, where do I start with this?
Thoughts.
I have thoughts. Okay. Well,
yes.
There's very much movies that are a me movie and those that are not.
Yeah.
You know?
You all chose one for Al that was not an Al film.
This was not an Al film. I kind of didn't know what to expect. Lars von Trier. I was like, I feel out of my depth. And so
Al sent me a message yesterday being like, okay, y'all, next time we have to have ground rules for people.
I was like, I don't know if I'm going to
something.
let y'all vote again. I was very pissy. I'm going to be honest. I was like a little tantrumed child. Killing Siena, kicking and screaming. I didn't want to outwardly, I didn't want to outwardly vent about it because I'm like, I'm gonna try.
Yeah,
I didn't try very hard, but I was like, I'm gonna try. No. So very much was not a fan of doing this film. Did my notes a couple days ago.
Al texts me and is like, I am struggling. There is no info about this
I was
film.
struggling to get 4 pages. And just so you all know, I typically on average, I'm 8 pages. Yeah. The thing I had 11. And I was like, I don't know what the fuck to talk about this film. I didn't watch it at the time. I watched it last night. And so I was very much like, fuck. But I'm going to say y'all were right. And that's rude of you. holy fucking shit.
It was amazing, right?
I loved this film in a way
so
that I
much.
didn't know was possible.
Yeah.
It was like I have like bits. I go first, I think, right?
Yeah.
I
I
have
think
like
we should just jump right into it.
Should we?
Like,
okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just. So yeah. Do we want to talk watch? You
Yeah.
all were
Oh,
right,
wait,
and that's
wait.
rude.
We have one thing to announce first. I just remembered.
Oh my God.
We are screening
forgot.
Black Christmas at the theater.
Yeah, that's gonna be our next pick.
It's gonna be our next
Our
pick. That'll be our
holiday
Christmas
pick.
special or
Yeah.
our holiday special. Why am I the one saying Christmas? I'm Jewish. This is weird. What are we doing?
I'll say it.
Yeah.
So, guys, we're doing Christmas.
Okay, great.
We're doing
Perfect.
Black Christmas. Yeah, December. Oh my God, I'm so glad you reminded me of work stuff. I was just gonna
that's
go
what
on
I'm
a
here
rant. Yeah,
I was about to lead you
Cinema.
into a rant.
.com.
Yeah.
Tickets on sale.
It's, I believe, the 20th,
Slasher.
21st.
Yeah, or like the 21st. Y'all can go to the
look up.
website.
It's that weekend before Christmas.
There will be
is when
fun
it's
$5
happening.
posters.
Yeah, it's the 50th anniversary, so it's actually, I think I saw it's like screening at a couple other art house theaters across the
Ugh,
US.
I love
It's
when
doing
we all
like a
come together with
reunion
the
tour. Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, it's cute. Our
Yeah.
little like indie cinema little I don't know,
Club. Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you for reminding me of that.
So
as
come
well.
out, watch it with us.
Now that my rant's
It'll
over.
be screening at the theater like the day before our episode on it comes out. So you can come watch it with us and then catch up on all the facts with us immediately afterwards.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about those ones. And you'll get to hear the other pick of that at the end of this podcast
Exactly. We'll
episode.
save that for the end.
Yeah, I'm excited about what I'm doing next week.
It's gonna be
but
fun.
this week, at least I'm excited about the one I'm doing next week. Was not excited about this one.
Well, because the one you're doing next week was one you picked,
Yeah,
which
I
makes a
did.
difference.
I changed my mind and I was like, I'm doing this one now.
We picked something else, and then Al was like, no.
Yeah, I was like, I can't do this to myself 2 podcast episodes in a row. But yeah, as I'm flailing the blood
Yeah, I
drop
love
around,
this, like,
you know, it reminded me so much of, like, I feel we're gonna. If you haven't seen this is gonna be. I would say, please, if you have not seen this, watch it first and then come back. But it reminded me of like a What We Do in the Shadows, like a Reno 911.
Well, it's
like insane slasher.
It's so
like,
much about this idea of like a man who thinks he's smart and he's so dumb.
oh my God, it's amazing.
He's just dumb
Most
and has
men, you know what I
such
mean?
luck. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you know what?
Bumbling, the most bumbling idiot. How are you getting away with this for like 10, 12 years I've ever met in my life?
It's like Dumb and Dumber, the serial killer movie.
Yes.
But scary.
But Christopher Guest mockumentary style.
Yes. Yeah.
Wild.
Which is actually
Wild.
incredibly Al-coded in some
So-
ways when you put it that
is.
way.
No,
Yeah.
I was cackling so hard at this because Christopher Guest was one of my favorite
fascinating.
directors too.
Yeah.
And I was like, what in the fucking like Christopher Guest mockumentary
Yes.
shit is this?
It's
But
a
it was
serial killer mockumentary.
so fucked up.
Yeah.
And so reading, I mean, again, we'll get into it, but like reading, and I don't have stuff about it because again, I watched it last night. This was definitely I should have watched it twice.
I have
but there was a lot of
notes on it
satire
also.
and humor stuff in the notes I was reading, and I was like, where? Because the little bit I know about Lars
It
von
didn't
Trier.
Lars von Trier isn't
Is he?
usually a very humorous guy.
Okay, I've
I'll
only
go ahead
seen
and say
Melancholia.
that. Which obviously there are clips from in this movie.
There are. I was like, I know that.
Uh-huh.
I know that. I loved that movie, to be fair.
I love Melancholia. It is probably my least favorite Lars von Trier movie, which is probably going to surprise people because most people consider it his masterpiece. I like both Antichrist.
I think this was his masterpiece.
I loved this.
This
I
might
like
have been
both
it.
Antichrist and Nymphomaniac more than I like.
You've talked about that on the podcast,
Melancholia.
yeah.
I think this might have beaten both of those out for me, though.
I mean, I've only seen the other one, but it beat the other one for me, and I didn't know if that was possible.
This and Antichrist are very on the same level for me, and I think you would like that one too.
See, it
'cause it's
sounds
his other
wildly
horror
something
movie,
like-
and it's got Willem Dafoe being wild. They had to give him a body stand-in because his penis was too distractingly big. It's
Well, as you do.
glorious. As you do when it's Willem Dafoe.
Same.
Yeah. Relatable problems.
Super relatable. Hashtag relatable. But yeah, so should get in.
Yes, let's get in.
Tidbit?
Tidbit.
Tid?
Yes.
I know you were digging for one. That's what our
Yes,
song
I do
was
have
for.
a tidbit. Yes, indeed. All right.
Do you want to go first or me go first? Do you want to find it while I talk?
Yeah, let me actually.
We
I've
fine?
got it pulled up. Let me give you mine first, so that then you can give me yours and go straight into the
Sweet.
film. How's
Giddy
that?
up.
Does that feel good? Okay. I want to talk a little bit about fashion.
Ooh, as I was going to say, the glorious suit that you're wearing, which we'll get into
Yes,
later.
we'll talk about the suit later. I was so excited to have a chance to wear this suit. I've been saving it for the right horror movie, and American Psycho was the right horror movie to wear a pinstripe suit for. However, as you can imagine, a film like American Psycho that's so much about like consumerism and brands and the lifestyles of the upper class.
Famous.
Exactly. Thank you, Al.
You're welcome. Good Charlotte.
A lot of some of the most interesting behind the scenes stuff that they dealt with was that no American brands wanted to be featured in this movie.
Oh, because they didn't want to be associated with
They didn't want to be associated with the serial killer. So they had to rely almost exclusively on European high fashion brands. Even the European high fashion brands did not want to be featured in the murder scene. So you'll see the character references Taruti, which is a brand that he's wearing.
Yeah.
He was only allowed to wear those for scenes in which he does not murder somebody. When he's murdering, he's not allowed to wear a Taruti suit.
Oh, yep.
And here's the one that I really loved. There's a famous line in the novel where it's immediately after the threesome scene, and one of them rolls over and touches his watch. And in the novel, he says, "Don't touch the Rolex."
Yeah.
Rolex wouldn't let them.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Every other character in the film is shown wearing a Rolex watch.
Oh, funny.
Pat Bateman is not allowed to wear one. So they had to change probably the most iconic line in the novel to just "Don't touch the watch," because nobody would let them use it. They also they approached Comme des Garçons to try and get bags from them, and they were like, "Are those bags going to be carrying bodies?"
Yeah. Here you go. Wait, what are you using this for?
And Mary Harron was like, "Yes," and they're like,
"At least they were honest."
They were honest. However, and here's tidbits wrapping up, I promise.
Yeah.
I know this is a little bit of a long one, but it's high fashion. We don't get the opportunity to talk about that very often. So who did they turn to for body bags that would be usable? Jean-Paul Gaultier. Yeah, which...
Okay, that's what I thought.
Oh, I fucking love him. Maybe my favorite designer. Also, interestingly related to the film as a whole, because Jean-Paul Gaultier kind of got his start as a designer by doing all of the costume design for the Peter Greenaway movie, The Cook, the Thief, His Wife, and His Lover, which is one of my favorite movies and is actually something I hadn't seen when I first watched American Psycho, but rewatching it now, the entire opening sequence I think is a direct homage to that film, because it also opens with the credits being presented through food at a fancy restaurant, and then opens on a restaurant scene that's shot very similarly.
Funny.
So I think it's a little Jean-Paul Gaultier related nod
he was
to
like,
the
we're
film
gonna
that got this famous fashion house started.
See, I didn't know that part of that.
What I'm here for.
That's so cool. Isn't it wild? Isn't there the thing too, like iPhone or like Apple iPhones won't let you ever use it. Like if someone has an Android, they're the villain. Or something like that.
Yep.
So.
iPhones you can't use for.
Let's be honest.
For bad
they're the
guys.
real villains.
Absolutely.
They're like, don't vilify us more.
They're like, we have enough bad publicity to
We're
contend
good
with
on
anyway.
our own.
Yeah, we're getting there just
Honestly,
fine.
probably given better press.
Yeah,
Love
truly,
a villain.
Truly.
Also, who's like, oh my god, they're using an iPhone.
Yeah,
like
they're like doing tons of terrible stuff in the real world.
As if someone's
seeing
gonna
a character use it on screen.
I'm not
going to
use my iPhone anymore because a villain used it once. Anyways, it's
priorities.
Wild.
Anyway, there's my fashion tidbit for you. Jean-Paul Gaultier, we love any high fashion brand that's willing to not only let its bags be used for body bags, but that got its start in a movie about cannibalism.
That's so cool.
Glorious.
I have to look up more about that now because of that.
I don't know if you would love it or hate it. I really love it.
Find out.
Yeah.
We'll find out.
There's no movie like it, and I'll just leave it like that. Yeah.
That's an ominous way to leave that.
It's an ominous movie.
Shit, I gotta look this up after.
Speaking of ominous movies, lead us into the house that Jack built. So do you have a tidbit?
Yeah, I'll start a tidbit. So this film came out in 2018. Set that off there. The film takes place, though, in the 70s and 80s.
I was wondering, it felt like it's set around Bundy times.
Yes, yes. Which is like I don't want to say big inspiration, but definitely an inspiration for this film.
Oh, it's like the golden age of serial killers, right?
Truly. So to that point, in the 70s, during that time, there
Mhm.
actually wasn't the
The
term
term
serial
serial
killer.
killer. Yeah.
It didn't come out until, when do I have? 1981.
And it was what's his name? The Mindhunter guy, right?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was the Atlanta child murders.
Mhm.
And so before that, everything was just called like mass murders. So for them to like kick off this movie, just dropping a term that was never dropped, I'm kind of
Love it.
like, could we have done it a little bit with all
Yeah.
the effort went in here?
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
so it wasn't a term
A little bit of
coined.
an anachronism there. Yeah.
Yeah, so it wasn't coined until 1974, wasn't widely kind of used in like a
Mhm.
public dictionary, I don't know,
Mhm.
until
the early
81.
80s. Yeah,
So
that makes sense.
just thought that was a little interesting.
Hmm.
So again, to kick it off, I was like,
So Al really came into this movie with a bad taste in their mouth.
It was honestly kind of jumps in pretty fast.
It
It was like the
does.
first 5 minutes, and then but it immediately gets into this weird pattern of like those jump cuts and like
Mhm.
being shot like a documentary, and it almost feels like you are so like, as the camera,
Mhm.
you are a person in that room or in that scene with
Mhm.
them. And it's like there's even some shots too where it's like it feels like the camera like steps out of the way
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
performer, which I thought was
totally.
like, I don't know, I loved. I
Well,
will
it's
keep raving throughout all of my notes now.
well, and the
So
cinematography is very like The Office style, where it's like there's
I was
there's
waiting
very
for them to
noticeable
be.
zooms. There's like
Were you
yeah,
waiting? I was waiting for talking heads.
yeah, or for like somebody to like do a take to the camera.
Yeah, like he just winks at us.
Yeah.
I kind
That
of wish
would've-
they would have done that.
It would have really gone with what the film was doing. I think
Yeah.
actually, for
Or
him,
just like
yeah.
one or two like
just at the very end, maybe.
what's the film? Funny Games.
Yeah,
I kind of wish, which you
this
know,
film
I didn't
and
realize.
Funny
till after-
Games have a lot in common.
Yeah, I almost wish, but it's almost fun that it
Doesn't, yeah, because it's so obvious for that to be the choice that it's. I think
It was kind of smart to just take one step
probably
back.
smart to take a step
Yeah.
back. but, yeah.
Description of this film, if you don't know, I did not know at the time. In 5 episodes, failed architect and vicious sociopath Jack recounts his elaboratory orchestrated murders, each, as he views them, a towering work of art that defines his life's work as a serial killer in the Pacific Northwest. I think
didn't realize it's
that's
the Pacific Northwest specifically. So
doesn't feel that
also
way to you?
very
Very
Bundy,
woodsy.
very Bundy coded
Mhm,
because he was
yeah.
all in like Washington during
driving
that
down those
time.
roads and shit, and, like,
Mhm,
parking.
Yeah, for whatever reason,
Um,
it felt like it was the East Coast to me, but
Mm.
probably just because I'm
Oh,
more familiar
yeah.
with that. But yeah, woodsy.
Back in the 70s,
Yeah.
who knows?
It's all the
They
same.
look the same. United States. One big road
so
trip.
many listeners are gonna hate me for that.
No one listened to us.
Y'all, I grew up in the desert. All places with trees kind of look the same to me. I don't know what to tell
Like,
you.
what's a tree? if they're not pines. So I thought this was interesting because as I knew, obviously I did my notes before and then I watched this to kind of add on to that mockumentary to The Office. The House that Jack Built was originally announced as an 8-part miniseries in September of 2014 when Nymphomaniac Volume 1 premiered at the
That
Venice
makes
Film
sense.
Festival. But in February 2016, so 2 years later, Lars von Trier announced that via a David Bowie themed video, which I have not looked up and I need to do that, on his official Facebook page.
Oh my God,
That The House
Lars.
That Jack Built would be the next, it would be released in 2018. So we kind of 2014, he said it was going to be a miniseries. 2 years later, changed the game and then said like it's going to come out in 2 years. I almost wish it was.
It would work really well as one.
Because
think.
I could have had each kill be an episode. Like it would have been so fun.
After the first 2 episodes, I was gonna guess that there were gonna be 12 of them.
Oh.
I was like, how many are there gonna be? And then there was the line where one of the women that he murders says that her favorite number is 12. And I was assuming that was,
kind of
was
like a
telling us that there were gonna be 12 murders, which
Yeah. He might
had
have
it
had
been a
him planned
miniseries, I would have watched 12.
I absolutely would have.
I would have eaten that shit up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Scoop it up. Slurp it up. That was
I'm
like
so sorry for that sound, y'all.
Did you slurp?
I just made an actual slurp.
Oh,
yeah, I'm so sorry.
I thought you
guys.
snort laugh.
Oh no, that was just a.
We're done. Sorry, mouth noises. I apologize. For anyone that doesn't like those,
I apologize for and then immediately do it again.
Sorry,
what am
we're
I
in your ear.
doing?
We're insidious today.
Disgusting.
So this also, The House of Jack Built was also questioned whether this film could have been the third part in his USA trilogy. which would have included the 2003 Dogville and 2005's Manderley, but was never finished. And then it sounds like they never, in like 2019, there was an update and they were like, there was another film announced. I clicked on the IMDb, completely blank. So it's unfinished. So who knows if he'll add to this at some point.
Because he loves doing trilogies. I know Nymphomaniac...
1 and 2?
Yeah, there's 2 parts to it, but that one, Antichrist and Melancholia, are a trilogy. And so, which is interesting because this one uses clips from all 3 of those, and it feels to me like it's very much a conclusion to them. This one and Antichrist have a lot in common. In
I gotta watch. So. I think the name threw me off.
Fair.
I don't know why.
Understandable.
I just thought, is it really religious-y?
It's actually not shocking. It's like, it's
okay.
Only as much as this is, in the sense that it like ends in hell.
This is about like as like
that's
religious-y as I can go.
Doesn't get any more so than this.
Love that. Thank you. Thanks for that pitch.
Yeah.
Tagline. I've won.
Love it. Is it good or is it bad?
It's good. I like it. I'll read the punctuation as well.
Perfect. We need that.
If you feel like screaming ... you definitely should.
Which
is the line he says in there.
Yeah, that's a good tagline.
Shit.
That's an Al style tagline where you take one of the best lines.
The good lines.
Take the good lines. Yeah. Give the job of writing the tagline to the screenwriter.
Do it after.
Yeah. Take it from the work already done by the person whose job is to write this story.
Truly. They don't. That's fine.
Yeah.
They fail again.
Yeah, great. Love that.
I'm going to spend a minute talking about like the R rating because there's some controversy around this.
I bet.
Yeah. So me and you both watched the unrated version, which isn't any longer, I don't think, than the. I think it's like a minute shorter, actually. But I wanted to watch.
Rare.
I always love if given the chance.
I'll always watch the unrated. Yeah.
So the film caused a lot of controversy with the MPAA at its screening of the unrated version.
Let me guess. They didn't love a tit being cut off and turned into a coin purse.
Love that part. Was it a coin purse?
I think it was a coin purse. Yeah.
Not cute. That part horrified me because it looks so real.
Handy.
Yeah, truly resourceful. Yeah.
Reduce, reuse, recycle, baby. Jack is very green.
Don't cut off boobs, everybody.
But if you do, use the whole
it.
boob.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Use all the parts involved. Build a house, perhaps.
See, I thought it was going to end
hell.
with him trying to build a house out of the bodies. Like, I thought that they were going to connect those 2 ideas and have it be that when he tore down the house originally,
he was going to make some lampshades.
Yeah.
Wallpaper.
Flesh.
Yep. Did technically build a house, which I realized before I get into the rating, because you're wrong. That's not why. But I realized I'd seen this still image before the very ending, and I did not know it was this, and my brain never made that connection. So when I saw that, I was very giddy.
It ends in a wild place.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And we can, I don't have any notes about that, but me and you can talk about it for 5 minutes
we will definitely talk about the ending.
Most of my notes will just be me talking about that. I'm going to do this thing that you did last time where like, I don't have a lot of notes, and then I'm going to talk.
Great. I love that.
Forever.
Perfect.
So rating, it wasn't because of the tit. Apparently, the IFC opened the unrated director's cut of the film for one night only on November 28th in over 100
right around
cities.
This time of year, too. Look at that.
Oh, shit. I didn't even realize. In over 100 cities across the U.S. without getting the appropriate waiver.
Oh.
And so they got in trouble.
That's kind of a baller move. I love that.
That's kind of great, right? So they got in trouble because it was so close to them releasing then the R-rated version that was supposed to go in the theatrical release on December 14th.
Potentially people could get confused and accidentally go and see the unrated, not realizing that it's not the R?
Yeah, they wanted to release the R. They were sly and released the unrated. They were just supposed to wait. So whatever, they got a slap on the wrist.
For them.
But the MPAA gave their little statement in an article I found. They wrote, the effectiveness of the MPAA, and I fuck them, by the way. I'm just going to start off there. The effectiveness of the MPAA ratings depends on our ability to maintain the trust and confidence of American parents. That's why the rules clearly outline the proper use of ratings. Failure to comply with the rules can create confusion among parents and undermine the rating system, and may result in the imposition of sanctions against the film's submitter. So, buttholes. But
I can't wait till we get to mine and we can talk about some
Yay!
of the dumb reasons that Mine ran
They need
into
to, like,
trouble
take a
with the
step.
MPAA. Yeah.
Also, like,
Also,
even if you're a parent you don't need to be a parent taking your kid to an R-rated film anyways.
that's the thing is, like, bringing kids into the conversation when you're talking about a fucking Lars von Trier movie, like, it's not for them!
And we're not parents, don't want to be. But,
No.
like, if I was a parent...
Yeah.
It's my choice if, like, I feel like my child's ready for that. It shouldn't
That's
be like, well, the theater...
Yeah.
Oh, well, they didn't rate
That's
this
not on the
appropriately.
theater,
Like,
that's on you as
you
a
can
parent.
kind of suss out
Yeah.
yourself. Do a little bit of work.
Also, I feel like when
Watch
it's
a trailer.
serial killer movie called The House That Jack Built, directed by
My
Lars von Trier.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, take
whose
a
most recent film before this was Nymphomaniac Parts 1 and 2.
They were like, no, this one sounds lovely. The little house
This one
that
sounds
Jack
appropriate
built.
for kids. Yeah, no.
So kind of to that, which we'll get into like mixed reviews of this after.
Oh, you don't
budget for this
say.
film, I almost forgot about. Guesses at budget for this. I'm kind of surprised by this budget.
I feel like, do we know if
You're
it was a
gonna know.
co-production?
I
think it was probably a
was.
co-production.
It was, because I believe they also worked with, oh my God, that's way down there. They worked with, they got some financing from like different places. So
Because I would guess, I feel like this is the sort of thing where if this were only an American movie, the budget would be about half what it is. I'm guessing that probably about half the financing came from Europe because that's the only way you get to make a movie like this with the budget you do.
Yeah, European.
I want to guess like somewhere between 8 to 12
Oh my
million.
God, why are you so good at this? 9.9.
Oh my God, look at that!
You're like literally dead smack.
Hell yeah!
You've been getting
Hell yeah, lady brother.
eerily better. Yeah. Eerily better
I've
at
been
this.
doing the budget for my own movie,
I
so
also-
movie
I
numbers are
test you
just every...
What episode are we on? I've tested you every single time. Want to guess how much it grossed over
Oh, I don't think
worldwide?
this one did well. I don't think so.
No.
I don't think this made its money back.
Ooh.
I'm gonna guess it made about 3 million.
Some sources say like a 3.1 and some say 5.5.
Okay, so somewhere in that range.
Yeah, so I wrote 5.5
I'm
to
on
give
a
him a little
roll.
bit of
I
credit.
love
Yeah, damn. I'll leave. You could just guess at all the rest of my notes. Because I feel like I'm actually talking a while about stuff, I might try and breeze through some of this. It's directed by Lars von Trier. Hi, did you know that? Yes, you did, because we talked about it.
Do you have in your notes anything about Dogma 95?
Nope.
Can I give a little Siena TED Talk real quick? So,
talk away. Talk.
Dogma 95. This is, I think, very important context for Lars von Trier as a filmmaker and the way he makes movies.
I'm not versed in Lars von Trier. So this is actually really
for.
great for me. I just watched interviews. He looks like a complete... Yes, let me rub the blood job. He sounds and looks like an absolute dick of a person.
He's a terrible, terrible man.
Yeah, so that's all I know of him thus far.
Lars von Trier, interesting dude. Don't think he's a great human being. However, I think the important context that you need for watching his movies, and part of the reason that he is very much like a you love him or you hate him director, is that the start of his career came as part of, he was one of the co-founders of this movement called Dogma 95 that came out in the year 1995. He and a bunch of his friends got together and wrote a filmmaking manifesto where they created a list of very restrictive rules for themselves for how they were going to go about making movies. And this was stuff like, you can only use real locations, you can't build sets, you can't like paint the walls different colors, you're going to use only existing light sources, you're going to use super filmy. It's very like intellectual, heady shit.
Yeah.
And it's very like experimental. So like the film that he's most known for from that period, and one of the classic Dogma 95 movies, is Dancer in the Dark with Bjork.
Oh yeah.
Which is, I actually haven't seen it yet. That's kind of the one that got his start. And what I know about it and what I know from the films that come after this, because after that he then goes on to make Dogville, which has Nicole Kidman. That one, even if you haven't watched it, you've probably seen like stills from it somewhere floating around on the internet, because it's famous for the entire movie is done on a stage set. And so if you've seen pictures of Nicole Kidman on a stage, that's what that is. Which also, it goes back to Dogma 95 and this idea of like, what is left when you take out all of the other things that we usually have in a film.
Don't you hate that you're like, I love that?
I do too.
Oh.
I do too.
And that's the thing. I want to hate.
I want to hate
his
it,
films
but
because
I'm a
he feels
fucking
so
film bro.
I know we're
Yeah,
kind
no,
of.
he's an incredibly pretentious filmmaker.
Yeah.
He's an incredibly pretentious filmmaker, and I think part of it
And you can
is-
tell.
Yes,
But
and part of it, I think, is that he comes very much from this like
that makes
manifesto
sense.
place of like, I'm gonna come
Wow.
in with a list of rules for myself, and the story I'm telling is less important than the experiment of what happens given these restrictions. And I think
So glad you
even once he
dropped that
opens
knowledge.
things out a little bit with
Mhm.
films like Melancholia, Nymphomaniac, and this film where, you know, he's got a decent budget. Like
Yeah.
there's lighting here. This isn't
Yeah,
all natural
yeah,
lighting.
yeah.
There are sets being built.
Hi,
But
the
it's
end.
still exactly. But it's still very much coming from this place of like, the story I'm telling is never going to be as important as the way I'm telling it.
That gives me so much context because a lot of the places, it was really hard to find any kind of behind the scenes or like any kind of, and then any interview was like a panel interview and he's sitting there like, why the fuck am I here?
Well, and he's also one of those directors who loves to give like snot-nosed sarcastic answers to everything. So
Oh my
like he
God.
never gives like a genuine response.
Most
in
of my
an
quotes are
interview.
from Matt Dillon.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, who I imagine had lovely things to say about.
Oh
this
yeah,
movie,
yeah.
But
it was a lot of talking about like when he would speak or he would talk, it was talking about like the creativity of the process, the experimentation of things, which I'll get into. I did find some things through these interviews, but that gives so much context, I think, to what I'm going to talk about. So it sheds a lot of light,
Yay.
and I'm very glad because that's why I was like, fuck y'all for picking this one. I love you. I mean that with love, but also fuck you. Because I was like, shit, I feel a little out of my depth talking about this.
Well, and I think this is why is because A, he's incredibly pretentious, and B, the way he's making movies is really like he's valuing very different things than most narrative filmmakers do.
Yeah.
And so it's gonna feel weird and a little bit different in ways that you can't necessarily place unless you know that history of like how he got here.
I love that.
So,
I'm glad you know about him because I was like, I feel like I should have watched this twice and then gone back because it was the first time I've had on the podcast where like doing notes and then my watch experience were so
vastly
contrast.
different. That's so interesting.
Yeah,
I'm so glad.
Lesson learned.
What a
In the best
delight.
way.
Yeah.
So I honestly can't wait to watch this film again. I truly cannot wait for the next time I get to watch this. So again, fuck y'all, thank y'all.
Yeah,
for
truly.
that.
Can I give you a little story about my watch experience?
Yeah.
Because I went in knowing that I'm somebody who likes Lars von Trier more than I think anybody has a right to like Lars von Trier. That's always like my go-to line on him.
I know, that's why I was
like,
panicking when like I had to cover it. I'm like, this is a Siena movie.
It is. It's very Siena coded, but like I can recognize why a lot of people find him really off-putting because he's incredibly pretentious. His movies are incredibly pretentious.
Yeah.
But I also like I wasn't expecting it to scare me. This movie really freaked me out.
This movie needs a trigger warning, and when we get into critic response, I understand why it got the response that it got.
And you know what it was for me that freaked me out? Because
I'm curious of what it is for you.
There were no jump scares.
No.
It just was the fact that
held.
it does such an incredible job of showing how a man can think he's the smartest person in the room, be doing the dumbest shit, and still commit so much violence without anybody blinking an eye or noticing. Like
both of these, really.
It was so real in terms of when I have been in situations where I felt unsafe with a man. That's exactly how they've been acting.
I know.
And it was it's
not this like smooth, like
no, it's that
it
like
really is.
I'm doing a really bad job lying. I just think you're so dumb that you won't pick up on it. And that I was just like, oh my God, this is giving me so many flashbacks to men trying to hit on me in situations where I ended up being okay, but had I been alone, had I been in my house, something really bad could have happened.
There's even a line too when was it Verge is like or whoever it's Verge he's talking to the whole time is like why did you only tell me the stories about the women like
and
is it
why do you think all the women are stupid?
And he was like, and it's just it really is like such a wild showcase of like
that's how they think. It was such a
it like hurts.
I think that
way.
Lars von Trier is a terrible misogynist, and I also think he does a really good job of making movies about the downfalls of misogyny.
I know. It's kind of a wild
It's
juxtaposition
bizarre.
for him.
Yeah.
And he claims that this really isn't about him. And I'm like,
It sure is. It's the more you know about
Sir.
Lars von Trier, the more
Yeah.
obvious it is that Jack is
Matt
about
Dillon,
him.
I have
Yeah.
a quote in here too, he says.
What
but-
I also, so I was watching this, I was I was sending live react voice memos to a friend while I was watching.
We'll have to post those on Patreon.
And mid voice memo recording, I'm talking to this friend and I'm saying something about like, you know, I really didn't expect this to scare me, but something about this is really getting under my skin. What is
Mhm.
this? And I'm like holding down the voice recording and I like pause for a second and then in the background
no.
you hear the voice of Verge go, "A killer with OCD." And
Oh.
I'm like, oh my god, that's why it's
Yeah,
scaring
yeah.
me because I have OCD.
Yeah, it highlights, and again, that's something like Lars von Trier struggles with too, openly and
Yeah.
admittedly, and I
Yeah.
think it's a brilliant
It is.
display.
It's and like as somebody with an OCD diagnosis,
Yeah.
like it
You're like,
hits
oh, fuck.
home.
Yeah.
It hits home.
Yeah, yeah, and it was done in a way too, where it's like even if you don't know what that's like, you'll kind
get
of
it.
get a glimpse of what
You'll
that looks
get it.
like.
Yeah.
It's wild. Lars von Trier, man. Ugh, I hate to love him, love to hate
Yeah.
him.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah, well,
I'm so
and
glad
I
you
know
got
I'm
this
here now.
reaction.
So, according to Lars von Trier, this
Mhm.
was the most Hitchcock-esque movie he said he's ever made.
Interesting.
Which again, I kind of want to watch that in that context. I wish I had
see
more
that, yeah.
information about that. And
Because
yeah.
he's not a very Hitchcocky filmmaker in
Mm-mm.
general, so I could, yeah.
I want to know where he pulled. Again, he's really
Yeah.
hard to find quotes on. We have writers for this. Obviously, Lars wrote it as
Mhm.
well as Jenny Hollund.
Oh.
It's Jenle, who was also the script consultant on Melancholia and also Nymphomaniac Volume 1.
Interesting.
We have cinematographer Manuel Alberto Claro. Hey.
Oh, gorgeous
Um,
work.
Yeah.
Gorgeous
Yeah.
work.
S- Are you familiar with? So he's a Chilean-Danish cinematographer.
Oh, dope.
Yeah, he worked with Lars on
Mhm.
Melancholia and
Makes sense.
Nymphomaniac Volume 1. So uses the same people. I think there's
Mhm.
just inherently the manifesto now we know.
Mhm.
It's just like a language that they can all
For
talk
sure.
to
Which I
each
think is
other with.
also, I can't remember if this is one of the rules of Dogma 95, but I believe one of them is that everything is shot handheld, which obviously the
well,
vast
yeah.
majority of this film is handheld and very, I think it works so well for
So
this one.
fucking cool.
It
It
really
was
is
just
effective.
fun
yeah.
and refreshing to
Mhm,
watch.
mhm.
So we'll get into who it's starring. So obviously Matt Dillon as Jack.
Mhm. Incredible performance.
Bro, I know.
Incredible.
Which when he got sent the script, he couldn't believe it at first.
Mhm.
He literally was like, "Why me? Like, what gave you the impression that I would be a good guy to play a serial killer?" And Lars actually answered that question and told Dylan he just liked his face. And Dylan was like, "I don't know how to take that." I don't know if that's a good thing. Do I look like a serial killer to you? To the
Yeah.
answer, I think you do. But that's fine.
Yeah.
He also looked like hot with the mustache.
True.
So he looked
True.
hot and serial killery. His eyes were terrifying in this.
Have you seen him in?
Yeah, he was in Singles. That's what I most know him
I
from.
haven't seen Singles. I most know him from Drugstore Cowboy,
Oh yeah, no,
which
haven't seen it.
is
Didn't even put that on here.
oh,
But there's something
think
about Mary, which I've watched once.
amazing.
Meh.
I think you would really like Drugstore Cowboy.
Heard of it.
actually. I think it's really. I feel like you'd enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That feels more of his like more. I mean,
Yeah.
there's something about Mary Drugstore Cowboy. There you go.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he was kind of like shocked by it. Obviously, like I mentioned earlier in researching the role, he did look at Ted Bundy,
Mhm.
obviously, for the inspiration, and also said about like working with Lars as a filmmaker that he just really appreciated how unique all of his films are and how unlike anything. It's funny because he was on the panel with, and I have the sources. He was on the panel with
Lars, and
Lars
he's like,
just
oh my god,
sitting there, and I'm like, and it was interesting because the panel that I watched, they'd only shot for like 2 days. And I'm like, why are we doing a panel like 2 days into shooting it? And then they have to talk about how great working with
I
each other
can't
is.
imagine what it would have been like if you tried to do a panel 2 days into shooting.
I'd be like, I don't know what to do. It was a wildly uncomfortable panel.
I
I'll
can
send it
only
to you.
imagine, yeah.
He was like, so he's called him very unique and unlike anything he's ever seen before.
That's
but
so, like,
that's why he wanted to do it. He's like, this is so outside of anything I've done.
I feel like calling a director like unique and unlike anything I've ever seen before is like saying
His films, not him.
Yeah, but I feel like it's very much the same thing as being like if you ask somebody, is this person hot? And you're like, oh, they have
They're
a great
interesting
personality.
looking. Yeah.
It's that.
Yeah.
It's that.
Yeah. It's giving that.
Yeah.
but it worked. We also have Uma Thurman, who I gotta say, hardly recognizable for me for whatever
Oh
reason.
my God. Yeah. She looked
Because I watched her in the
totally
trailer and I
different.
didn't know that was
Yeah.
her. I was like, where is she?
And
Lady
she
number one.
also kind of terrified me in this.
I thought she was gonna kill him first, or try to not kill him,
I
but like
thought she was going to
try
attack
to.
him.
And he was
I
like, "Ooh,
wanted
I
her
like
to
that."
attack him.
And then he
Yeah.
kills her,
Yeah.
and then he gets the taste. I thought she was
Yeah.
gonna be like the catalyst. That again. The first 5 minutes, I was hooked.
Yeah.
We don't need to explain where Uma Thurman's from. We know. She worked with Lars before on Nymphomaniac. She said she had a great time and was thrilled when she received this script for this film as well. So I didn't know they worked together prior. She said when she read the script, she like when she was reading through the script on the panel, she kind of was joking about it and just started laughing. She goes, like, I'm reading it, and then she goes, ah, and there Lars goes again. Yep. And she's like, okay, this is what I gotta expect from him. And she also called him, quote, an amazing director for actors, which I think is like the highest of compliments, and called him incredibly sensitive and tender. Again, he's sitting next to her. She kind of like jabbed him and said that, you know, he's sensitive and tender in this way where he tries to get this like in a brutal way to get the things that he wants out of film. So I kind of just loved the juxtaposition of those words and describing him. And again, this was like they shot for 2 days and they were on this panel together. So I love that.
I mean, I guess at that point, her work probably only took about 2 days, I would imagine. 2 or 3, something like that.
I think, she might have been wrapped.
Yeah, she might have been done. Yeah.
Lars kind of made a joke at that panel as well and said that he chose Uma and Matt Dillon because they both, quote, couldn't read. Because he had sent the script to so many other actors and everyone, when they read it, were so horrified and didn't want to do it and turned it down, Kirsten Dunst being one of them, that he was like, yeah, they definitely couldn't read because there's no way they'd say yes to this because he just kept getting rejection. I tried to find who, but I don't have a list.
That's really interesting that Kirsten Dunst turned it down since she was the lead in Melancholia. So
she's just been a conflict of,
that's true.
You know,
she might have just not been available.
Yeah. So,
and I guess also part of the reason why it frustrates me when people talk about Melancholia as his best movie is I think it is by far his most traditional and least subversive movie.
That one also just I think that got marketed correctly.
It got marketed correctly, but it's also
I think that's what it was.
It's about depression. Like, it's not about a murderous serial killer. Like, it's about something that's much more grounded and down to earth and not disgusting in the same way. And I think that is easier for an actor to sign on for.
Yeah. And I also think people looked at that one as more of like, oh, it's just an
art
film.
Yeah. Whereas
I
think this was very much like Lars von Trier is at it again.
Like buckle up or get the fuck out kind of thing. Yeah.
Which is part of why I love it so much.
It's so good. It's so brutal.
I'm so glad you liked it.
I loved it so much. We have Siobhan Fallon Hogan as lady number 2, who's most known for me for Holes and also Beatrice in Men in Black. So the whole time when she was on screen, I just kept wanting to say, Edgar, your skin's hanging off your bones. Oh my God. And sugar water. I love her. And that was her scene, that kill.
Which one is she?
She's the one at the door when it's jump cut after jump cut after jump cut of him fumbling and fumbling and fumbling. And
was
I was
the
like,
one that scared me the most.
Yeah. Because it was the most real. It held on the longest. You had to sit with it the longest.
The way you can watch him so obviously lying and see that she can tell that he's lying and just doesn't feel like she can call him on it was so real.
It was. That was the one that was the toughest.
Yeah,
for me.
I actually looked away from the screen at a couple points.
It was tough.
That one. It really.
You know what's tough too? I have a really hard time with any kind of like murders in films. Like, again, it takes a lot to like.
Yeah, me too.
What gets me is that, you know, he's, you know, knocked her down. She's struggling to breathe. Her hand's shaking. All this stuff.
He gives her
water. And him apologizing is honestly like might be one of my top 5. Like, I think I'd pass out from panic hearing someone trying to kill me also then apologizing.
And then he goes and gets her the water and then sees that she's starting to sit up and is like, oh nope, gotta kill you now. That
But then we get the comedy relief of that.
Yes,
it's him leaving and dragging her body through on the back of the car.
Oh my!
So there is
with fucking David Bowie music.
Yeah. Just
and
the same song.
Slaps.
I made the joke like it only had the budget for the one song.
And they
not. It might
used
have.
the fuck out of
They
it.
did,
And
yeah.
every time it came back on, I loved it. Like,
Yeah.
I never got sick of it.
Me
I was like, oh,
either.
hell yeah.
Yeah, it was great. It was a wild, man, this was a wild ride.
Yes.
Yeah, this was her third movie with him, but that was the scene that
Oh.
really, like, I was like, oh, I can get why people had a reaction to this. Because the first one feels pretty, like, normal. It's just a head
Yeah.
bash. Just a casual,
Yeah.
run-of-the-mill head bash.
Yeah. I, like, wasn't, I
this
didn't
one
feel
was
anything about that one. The
pulled
second
in.
one.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even the kill. It was the lead up to it. Just,
The anticipation of it. Yeah. So, Bravo. I love her.
Yeah,
She's great.
truly.
She pops up everywhere. We have Riley Keough as Simple. Obviously
love
people
her.
know her. I know. I'm going to do a shout out to Ben, her brother, who I used to know in LA,
That's so
who's sadly
cool.
no longer with us. But seeing her face is wild because boy, do they look the same.
Oh, man, that's wild.
Yeah, so she's most known for Daisy Jones and the Six. It's a TV series. I think that's what
Watched
like made
all
her
of it.
pop off. Started it, didn't finish.
I also saw her though in American Honey.
That's what I was gonna say. American Honey. I feel like people really know her from. And then I want to shout out a really great thriller horror movie that I watched called The Lodge that she's in. It is.
Really good things about that.
Buckle up for that one and like be prepared to just like sit after and be like,
Ooh.
"Whew, that was tough."
Love that.
Brilliant.
Love that.
Really, really fun wintry horror. So big recommendation for people if you want something a little bit calmer in tone, but it fucks your brain up a little bit.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So she's so great in that. Fun fact about her, and I should say not her, but her character, Matt Dillon, almost didn't take the role because of the scene with Simple. He said, quote, "I almost didn't do the movie because of the Riley sequence. It was difficult for me, and it only got harder on the day because Riley is very believable at being terrified," which, yeah, she was. Her close-ups on her eyes were insane. And making someone that frightened is just something that I don't ever want to do to anybody. Even as an actor, I kind of love that he is able to kind of say that. But that's what this film is.
Yeah.
It's fiction. And I feel like it's kind of lame to bring that kind of mortality to set or morality to set. You have to look at the thing and say, I'm playing this character, and this character has no empathy. He's like a person who was born sick. He got a, I don't know what that word is. I'm just going to skip forward. He's missing this very natural component the vast majority of human beings have. So,
well, and I also, part of what I think makes that scene as scary as it is the fact that he prefaces it by telling Verge, I felt about her ways that no psychopath should be able to feel. I had more feeling for her. And then you see the way that manifests, and you're like, oh, the feeling he's talking about is desire for ownership. Like, he doesn't see her as a human any more than any of the others.
It was shown even with the string with the phone. It's a cat and mouse.
Exactly.
Pulling on the string game.
Yeah. And the fact that he thinks that is such a different emotion, that also upset me so much because it also felt true to straight men that I've encountered in real life who think that is love, who think that desire for possession is love.
Somebody definitely dated someone with like issues like that.
Yeah.
Too
real. It's too real.
Yeah. On a lighter note, my favorite character, Grumpy. Grumpy. I love Grumpy. Grumpy and George were actually brothers in real life. Yeah, so they get to be mutilated together.
That was a.
I wonder if they ever saw each other in those molds as children.
I'm so curious because that
terrifying. Probably the most terrifying part.
Such a great special effect. Yeah, it was disgusting. As soon as that came on screen, I was like, "Oh, Al's gonna love that."
I loved him. I like sadly don't have any like special effects stuff, so sorry if that's what you're waiting for.
It all looked like practicals to me.
Yeah, practicals, and then
I'm sure the end was CGI, but like all of the gore looked practical to me.
Yeah. So just shout out to him. So moving on to kind of like the script. Obviously Dante's Inferno is a big inspiration for this, which I'm not super
long before
the Earth became the Earth.
I'm so sorry, guys. I'm going to go on another tangent. I have a whole bunch of quotes from Dante's Inferno in my first movie. So as soon as I heard him addressing one of the characters as Verge, I was like, oh, this has to be a Dante's Inferno reference because that's Virgil that he's talking to.
Yeah, it took me a second because, again, I doing notes, I wanted to stay away from spoilers for this one because I like saw little like like little
Smart.
sprinkles, and I was like,
I
gotta
wanna
watch
know.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta watch this. So,
Smart.
obviously no one has to tell you that reference. There it is. The film's ending was actually suggested by Von Trier's co-writer, Jenle Halund.
Interesting. Because I thought it was such a brilliant button that it ends with him falling and then turning into the negative. That
I know.
Chef's kiss.
God,
So
us film
satisfying.
#film bros over here.
Truly.
Yeah, I fucking ate again. I ate that shit up. So it was Jenle who had kind of pitched that to Lars, and Lars obviously loved it and said, quote, "I thought that's a good idea because it's a long time since we've really revisited hell in films in like this way, particularly the journey to hell. We put it together from different conceptions or whatever the word is of hell. The Elysian Fields, which is like a Greek concept of the afterlife. I was going to bring in more information, don't. And kind of this Roman mythology. He's quite sure that hell doesn't look like what we have made for this film, but like I just love that he was like, I love that idea. That's wrong with that. And it's just, I don't feel like we talk about and do like journeys to hell
enough. Yeah.
Because one of my favorite books is oh my god, I'm totally blanking right now. Chuck Palahniuk, Damned.
Oh,
I love living in like a really fucked up, because I'm not like, I like reading fantasy. That's my favorite, but Damned by Chuck Palahniuk is so fun because it really is, it all takes place in hell and like moving through hell, and the way they describe stuff is so gory and gross, and like imagine spending eternity in that. It just like, it makes me panic in a way. I don't believe in the concept of heaven or hell, personally. But the concept of that is so fun for me. I love it. So
this is making me think that you would enjoy Antichrist more, because there's a little bit of Antichrist that.
All right, I've already been bullied into this one. I'll be
space.
bullied into that one too, and I'll resentfully like it. Damn.
The more I hear you talking about the things you liked about this, the more convinced I become that you would enjoy it.
Okay. So well, then anyone else listening to then, listen to Siena.
If you liked House That Jack Built, watch Antichrist. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. Cover on this podcast? Not a good one.
I think it would be a great one.
We'll leave it. We'll leave the large one. We'll leave the film Pretentious Bro movies. We'll give you guys a break.
We'll space it out a little bit. But I will actually say the reason I watched Antichrist was because I'd gone to Video Library to check out The House That Jack Built, took it up to the counter, and Lisa was like, "Oh, I don't like this one. Take Antichrist instead."
Was it when you were renting this?
No. This was like a year ago.
Yeah.
And I'd like wanted to watch The House That Jack Built, and she was like, no, I don't think it's very good. Watch this one instead.
Not like where we came from, Lisa. What else do I have? Do I have a quote from him? Lars also said, to kind of like the idea of this film, that The House That Jack Built celebrates the idea that life is evil and soulless, which is sadly proven. Love
Antichrist. You're gonna love Antichrist.
But you'll love this. Which he says is sadly proven by the recent rise of the Homo Trumpus, the Rat King, aka Donald Trump. A big part of this was kind of his little jab at being like, Donald Trump is a horrible human being. So
Homo Trumpus? Oh my god.
Homo Trumpus.
I love that.
I had to look it up. I was like, am I missing something, or is he talking about Donald Trump? He was.
Well, I mean, so is my movie. So
oh fuck. Yeah. Oh well, yeah, because fucking Melania's in yours. But yeah, he calls him the Rat King.
In mind, he's constantly going around New York trying to find wherever Donald Trump is. He's trying to follow in his footsteps. Yeah.
Yikes. Yeah. You guys can't see the facial reaction on that. Yikes.
Yeah.
So,
very apropos
so much more
episode.
in common. Yeah, y'all kind of knew what you were talking about, I guess.
Yeah.
So there was also, I'm not going to take to the reference stuff. There was a lot more reference stuff. I kind of just loved all like the footage and stuff that they used.
Wait, I want to hear.
It's not that fun. I just have like one of the paintings, but there were so many references.
Wait, I want to know. Tell me the history reference. I love that shit.
So the photo taken, so when he's kind of, Jack is first using the photos in the mirror to kind of mimic human expressions, which I fucking love.
Yeah.
As an autistic person, I do that too.
Big relief. Yep.
Didn't realize
who hasn't practiced to smile in the mirror? Let's be real.
All of you. So the photo that they used for that was the 1862 Dr. G.B. Duchenne de Boulogne. I have no fucking idea. It's titled, though, I could read this, Fright Mixed with Pain, Torture. That's the name of my autobiography.
Next time somebody asks me
Reading
how I'm
this
doing,
sentence.
that's what I'm going to say.
Yeah, fright mixed with pain, comma, torture. And the original photograph is now part of the Wagstaff collection at the Getty Museum.
Look at that.
But there was, I wrote that before, not realizing there are
so many,
and I was like, we
Yeah.
could probably leave that out, and then you pulled it out of me. So moving on to the marketing and the premiere of this film, it made its debut at the Cannes Film Festival May 14th in 2018, which was 7 years after Lars von Trier's infamous Nazi comment during the press conference of Melancholia. I had to look up what he did. He made a joke that he once thought he was Jewish, but then found out he was actually a Nazi, aka actually white. I don't think that's the worst.
It's really.
It was during like the Me Too movement. Everyone was like, "Why are we giving these men like you're gonna tell this person they can't come back?" Because he was labeled like persona non grata after this, which he wore a fucking shirt at a Berlin film festival and was just like flashing it on the red carpet. It said persona non grata special selection.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
To be that petty, to be fair.
That's fucking great.
But there was kind of this double standard that people talked about of like, okay, you're gonna tell him he can't come to this. 7 years later, you're gonna let him come back with the film. So I get it.
Let me just say my personal take as a Jew. Like, I think that was very clearly meant as a provocative joke. I don't think that
he didn't call anyone else that, and he wasn't even saying he basically was just being like,
it's a joke aimed at himself.
Bad lineage.
Yeah.
Which
he's being like, I'm a person from Eastern Europe who thought I was Jewish and found out I wasn't. I probably have some bad history.
Harm. I expected something so much worse, to be fair, but maybe that's just me giving the credit to a person that shouldn't get it.
I honestly think part of it is that in some ways we are harder on filmmakers like von Trier than we might be if he were an American filmmaker. Like, I personally, I feel like if he were quote unquote ours, I think we would have been like, oh, he's just joking. He's just a genius. He's
double
just an
standard
auteur.
is pretty tough. So like, I thought the comment was going to be worse. Was happy to hear it wasn't.
Yeah, I think Lars von Trier is an asshole. I don't think that comment is what makes him an asshole. I think what makes him an asshole is that he's not great with women. Like,
hard agree. Yeah, hard agree. So I was happy to hear that it wasn't, but I wanted to give that context of like what the fuck that comment was
for sure.
And like, a word like that,
just to put it out there are a lot of Jewish people who find that much more offensive than I do. I'm only speaking for myself. I'm not speaking for the entire Jewish community. I just I don't think that's a big deal.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a big deal.
I'm not going to speak on that. Yeah. But I definitely thought it was going to be way worse than what that was.
For the level of controversy that it produced.
I expected it, like, everywhere you looked, when you looked up this film, there was constantly, like, Nazi comment back after that. And I was like, oh, fuck. And then I read that and I was like, it was just... I thought it was just going to be worse, I should say. I'm not saying it's not bad. Yeah. I just thought it was going to be worse. Yeah. So, anyways, he got back. He was petty on a red carpet in Berlin. Kind of love it. That kind of ate.
Great.
But during the screening at Cannes, it was reported that more than 100 people had actually walked out of the screening.
We love.
Both audience members and critics. Good. I kind of love that too. I feel like that's art. You're evoking some sort of emotion, negative or positive.
Right. Yeah.
If everyone was just like, it's fine. I don't want that. I'd rather you hate it.
I want you to feel something.
Yeah, feel something. If it's hate, go for it, baby. But I thought it was funny because the film then did receive a 6-minute standing ovation, which I'm going to be honest.
6 minutes?
Everyone gets a fucking 6 to 10 minute ovation. Does it even mean anything anymore?
It doesn't. It doesn't.
Also, not standing clapping for 6 minutes. What are we doing with our lives?
Too long. Every time
what are we doing? This film festival could be like, how many days in it? We could cut 2 days off of this just by cutting the standing ovation.
Yeah, just make a rule against it.
Yeah.
Just no clapping at the end of films, period.
Just get the fuck out of here. Yeah, so...
make the critics do their jobs.
Truly.
Make them articulate how they feel.
Yeah, that's what they're good for,
That's what they're good for.
Their opinion they don't ask for. I'm not biased. Moving on to... I have only a little bit on production. I kind of mentioned before this was partly financed by a Copenhagen film fund.
Makes sense.
They provided at least €1 million or €1 million in production.
And right now the euro and the dollar are very close. I don't know what they were in 2018, but it was I think like $1.30, something like that.
Yeah,
it was close-ish.
Yeah, and the film itself was a co-production between France, Germany, Sweden, and Denmark, which makes sense because they shot many parts of it in the UK. They were in Denmark, Italy, and Sweden.
Probably part of why it didn't feel like the Pacific Northwest to me.
I thought it did I'm not from there, so like what do I know? But I think it did a pretty decent job.
I'm used to bigger trees for the Pacific North. Like,
They were so
taller.
close on people's faces that I think that's where they
fair.
got away.
That's fair.
Although it maybe makes sense why the alleys felt off. American alleys and alleys in
anywhere else,
any other place in the world.
Yeah, I saw that alley
are
and I was
wildly
like, that looks like it's in England.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, we don't have that much like texture happening.
No, our
Even in
alleys
the
don't.
70s.
Our alleys are gross
Our
in a
alleys
very
don't alley
different
like
way.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, so-
that's Europe has like atmospheric alleys. We just have
Truly.
like dingy alleys.
Sterile, like you
Yeah.
feel like you're gonna actually get murdered back
Exactly.
there. Lars von Trier actually split the filming into 2 parts in order to have the opportunity to edit in between on this, which is the first time he's ever done that.
Wait, this makes me feel so much better.
I know.
Oh my god! Wait, tell me everything.
That's all I got. And he did that because. Good job, Siena.
Okay, wait, genuinely, that's like
Yeah.
making me feel emotionally a lot better about the fact
Okay.
that I'm like being forced to do that by others.
I know,
So
poor Siena
cool.
walked in with a whole
I'm sorry.
story for us, and we felt really bad. None of us had good supportive
No,
words.
no,
So
no.
Lars von
Sweet
Trier.
Warren came in and asked me if I've finished shooting it, and I was like, "Don't worry."
Warren was like, "Oops, we shouldn't have gotten the American Psycho Day."
Warren's like changing subject
You know
very
what?
quickly.
Maybe you know what? So yeah, he did that. It's
Love
okay.
that.
There's also no right way to do film making.
true.
I think
That's true.
no right or wrong way to do art.
Yeah,
I don't think. Which I think this whole film
Great.
literally talks about.
Yeah.
Just jerks itself off over and over again about that. He
Having like your character giving a quote about the nature of making art while playing a bunch of clips from your own previous movies is a move. That is a move.
It went like so. I think it's because the topic of the character being this sociopathic, it worked.
It's making fun of itself.
And it was.
Yeah.
And that's
And
where
it
I
was
just didn't
fucking
get the
hilarious.
like when again reading it and hearing the stats, I don't like this movie is
It's so
truly
funny.
the most fucked up movie I think we've ever watched
Yeah.
on the podcast.
This is
I love it.
I've got to
and I love
say,
it.
I get Von Trier mixed up with Michael Haneke a lot, who did Funny
oh.
Games, because I think they have a very
Yeah.
similar aesthetic in some ways, in terms of this really fucked up
I
dark
need like
sense
a million
of humor.
movies like this. If
Yeah.
I'm so for real. So the cast and speaking of like the creativity and everything, the cast and the crew kind of talked about how creative this whole process was. And so obviously Lars, I think if you know anything about him, I did not. He likes to shoot a lot of takes from a lot of different angles to capture the things he wants. But also they kind of said this was because of that, it felt like it was more of a loose set, which hearing his manifesto now, knowing of him as like this pretentious filmmaker, you'd think he'd have everything really buttoned up. But he kind of left room for the actors to kind of find creativity in the scenes. And Dillon said that they never rehearsed. And he's like, normally when I've shot things before, they'll sometimes shoot rehearsals because they don't have time and everything feels rushed. And he goes, this was like the complete opposite of that. So they never once had a rehearsal. Matt said, quote, "It was a real philosophical way of shooting and working, and that it was very much like, let's see what happens." He said it was really great for him personally because it kept him out of his own head and his own ideas, and that it was almost better way for them to take chances on things and fail, and they could embrace those mistakes that came along the way. So again, knowing that and watching it and all those like jump cuts of all these takes, I'm like, those were just riffs and takes and in the moments and failures and successes within these mistakes that they were allowed to make. And I'm like, I love that.
That's
so it took off
satisfying.
a pretentious point
Yeah.
for me, and I was like, he got a cool point for that.
Look at that.
Yeah. I kind of loved it, and it worked to the benefit of this. So I kind of loved hearing that was an intentional thing.
That's really cool.
This might make you feel better too, even though it was more special effects. They did spend nearly a year in post-production to kind of
just
put
make me feel
everything
better.
together.
Thank you.
Yeah. Like, what can I give you to make you feel better today?
I need everything
There's
I
no
can get.
timeline. We have learned that on talking about these films. But yeah, so
love that.
the process,
That's
you
so
feel that.
satisfying.
You feel that in
Yeah.
this. You feel like it doesn't feel rushed. It felt like there was
No.
time. Again, kind of also the juxtaposition of the first half of this film to just how beautiful and very much like, if you know anything from Melancholy, like I don't know the other films, but like it felt very Melancholia. I was like these very slow-mo, like Baroque kind of
it gets very
lit. The arm wall, the body wall.
Yes, it becomes very, and this is something that I love about Lars von Trier, is he's very clearly such a European art history nerd, and so he'll do things where it's just like a series of him recreating paintings in motion. You know, that's so.
I wanted to just stop and look at them. I know. I was like, I was gonna do it again. I just want to eat it all up. Our eating noises are wildly different.
Yeah. Yours is cute. Mine is disgusting.
It's all I got because otherwise I'm really gonna horrify everybody. I'm not gonna spend too much time on this like last chunk that I have, because I just feel talking themes and all these things just overkill. It's very apparent. No one's trying to hide anything.
You just need to watch the movie.
You kind of just need to watch it.
It gets its themes across pretty clearly.
Yeah. So I'm gonna skip over some of this stuff in regards to like character, but kind of in regards to like all the violence in this film, which is obviously very hard for a lot of people to watch, which is why it got mixed reviews. For Lars, he kind of said the idea that pain is worse if you only see the eyes of the man who's being stabbed. He said is kind of like bullshit, and he thinks being tactful in these senses is really an excuse. And if you're making film, why would you want to make excuses for yourself? Which I was like, I was going to ask, what do you think about making excuses for yourselves in films? To which I know we both probably agree. It is bullshit.
It is.
That's not the point of making it. Like, make a statement, stick with it, and trust your audience.
Make the bold choice.
So I kind of love that. I love, again, took off a pretentious, gave a cool point for that one.
As a viewer, even if something doesn't end up paying off for me, I would always rather see a filmmaker make the weird choice and reach for the thing. Than try and play it safe and end up like...
Well, then you'll just piss... I'm going to be honest, you're going to piss everyone off and like no one's going to be happy
exactly.
at that. Try to appease everybody, you're going to fail
happy.
Everybody.
So don't try to make people happy.
Which I love that he's just like, fuck it in a way with that. So... what else do I have in here before we skip to critics?
Well, and I also, just to jump in really quickly, I also think that goes to the point about the comment that he made and like the reaction that it got is like, I like the joke that there was the huge controversy about, the Nazi joke. Like, I think that you have to take comments like that in the context of the person who's making them. And when it's coming from somebody like Lars von Trier, who makes the kind of movies that somebody like Lars von Trier makes, like, this is somebody who's out there to shock people. And I kind of think on some level, if you're somebody who hates Lars von Trier and hates that he works that way, and then you get all up in arms about him making a Nazi joke, you're giving him what he wants.
Yeah, that's like, a fair point. Yeah. He likes it.
He likes it.
That's why I think he's quiet and he's just probably really giggly when people get pissy at him. Well, that's why he walked on the red carpet with the damn... He went out and got that shirt made to wear at a film festival.
Bitch got that customized.
Yeah. He got that bedazzled. It was gold, baby. It was a black shirt with gold tags.
Just rhinestones.
Yeah. Me and you need one.
New merch idea.
That's the one for the episode.
Honestly, merch that just says persona non grata in like sparkly writing.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
Super into it.
Kind of fun.
Yeah.
We are gonna move on to critic stuff because then I feel like I'm gonna bog down the conversation. So critics response, like I said, mixed. It's got a 6.8 out of 10 on IMDb.
Not
higher
bad.
than I thought. 59 on Rotten Tomatoes with a 43 Metacritic rating.
Wow, that's low.
And the critics kind of generally considered it to be, well, obviously deeply disturbing. And so a lot of them either praised him for the bold and uncompromising nature of this film, which like it is.
Yeah.
Others found it too graphic, repetitive, and kind of just thought that it relied too heavily on these shocking scenes and and I'm like, that's the point.
Yeah.
And then some critics highlighted,
expect?
I know, right? Like, he didn't do that to not shock you.
Right. Again, this is Lars von Trier.
In other news, jump scares made me scared.
Yeah. Jump scares made me jump.
Yeah. That's what I was trying to say. I was like, where am I going with this? Jump scares made me jump. Obviously, a lot of people also like praised Matt Dillon, even if they didn't like it. They thought his performance was really well.
Yeah.
I have some critics. I have some Quidditch.
Some Quidditch quotes.
Some Quidditch quotes from Armand White, who says the film kind of satires this guilt-free violence by rubbing it on the audience faces in ugliness and enjoys it, which I kind of love.
Love that.
We have David Rooney from The Hollywood Reporter said, quote, "The house that Jack built is definitely something to see." Same. But what's most surprising is that it's just as often insane as it is unsettling. And then, am I going to end? Yeah, we'll end on a Roger Ebert review from critic Brian Tallarico. Do you have one too?
No, but I listened to a couple of
Siena.
different podcasts,
Ew.
one of which often quotes reviews from Brian Tallarico because they're
How
friends
did I
with him.
say Brian?
When you
And
said
you knew.
when you said that it was a critic on RogerEbert.com whose
I don't
name is
care. There's
Brian
gotta be
T.
more. Okay.
I was like,
I didn't
wait.
realize I started to sound out the second half. I'm like, okay.
As soon
we
as I
need
got
to
that,
we
that
need to
T
separate
sound.
for a little bit. We need to take a walk
Put
in
us in
separate
separate kennels,
directions
yeah.
around the building. So I'll end on this one.
Brian Tallarico,
Thank
I
you.
believe.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
I can't read. I can't tell a Rito. I don't know. So the only pun so far. These sunglasses are very tight on my head.
Squeezing all the puns out.
All the blood is just pooling at this point. Not in my brain. So I don't know where else. Okay, moving on. He says,
It's the sound of
quote,
Al being attacked by puns, trying to fend them off.
be like, ooh, that's would be the sound of me being attacked by puns. That sounds lovely.
Each time one lands,
As-
he's like, ooh,
What's
delightful.
that? Okay, so Brian, our good little friend, says some of the long conversations about art are navel-gazing garbage that would get someone kicked out of a college class, which I love. Because, again, the pretentiousness, the film
it's
bro
there.
yeah. Ultimately, it's more of an inconsistent cry into the void than a conversation starter it could have been. Most of all, like the serial killer who literally tells a cop about his crimes, Von Trier just wants you to pay attention to him. Repulsed or fascinated, he doesn't really care as long as you see him. It's up for you to decide if it's worth seeing.
What do you think, Al?
You shall fucking watch this film.
Watch this movie. Yeah, I fucking loved it.
I loved it.
What do you want to? What's our letterbox rating for this?
I loved it.
Yeah,
I loved
my
it.
instinct is like a 4, something like that.
I would give it a 5.
my
I've never
God.
cackled harder. Honestly, it was on par of me cackling at You're Next when I first saw it for me.
I love
I
that.
was dying.
Oh my God, I'm so happy to hear
I
this.
need the miniseries.
Because,
Yeah.
like, again, I love Lars von Trier.
I think I might
I love him.
start to be a fan.
And, like,
so thank you all.
Anytime people bring him up, it's usually like, ugh, Lars von Trier. And I'm like,
I kind of was like,
him.
Lars von Trier? I don't know what to say. So now I have something to say. I'm going to say stuff. And I say I like.
Yay!
So, yeah.
Yay!
So that is The House of Jack Built 2018.
Thank you all for recommending it.
Thank you all.
It really-
now,
yeah.
that was very on the fence of how I was going to come in here today.
Could have gone one of two wildly different
Yeah,
ways.
you would have gotten a different Al.
Yeah.
You would have gotten serial killer Al today. I would have had to return videotapes. Siena's got to return videotapes. Actually, we
actually
should return
both need to
some
go return some videotapes
You
now.
want to go do that?
Let's go do that. Let's go
Okay.
take a break, return some tapes, come back.
We'll be right
back.
Know how much you love stories of horror and gore. Meet our sponsor, Beasley Books, the independent bookstore owned by author George R.R. Martin in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Beasley specializes in autographed titles, rare editions, and speculative fiction, which includes sci-fi, fantasy, and of course, horror. You can find many authors whose adaptations we've covered at Beasley, including Stephen King, Clive Barker, and more, alongside the likes of Nick Cutter, Shirley Jackson, and Anne Rice. Visit the Santa Fe storefront Wednesday through Sunday at 418 Montezuma, or shop online anytime. I don't know why I'm Irish now, but you can find them at BeasleyBooks.com or on Instagram at BeasleyBooks418. And make sure you use code SPLICE10 to save 10% when you shop online. SPLICE10 to save 10% when you Shop online. Bye.
And we're back. Y'all, I panicked. I had me and Siena got a lollipop break.
Yeah,
A lollipop.
A lollipop break.
It's right
That's
here
so
if you're
cute.
watching. It's cherry flavored, the best one.
Are you a cherry lollipop?
Yeah, what
person?
kind of... I am.
I had a sour apple.
Oh.
That feels very our personalities.
It
actually, yeah. That
Both
feels on
tart,
brand.
sour, and tart. It tracks.
Truly.
What lollipop are you guys? Let us know.
Honestly.
I kind of want to know.
So we've returned some videotapes.
Got a new one.
We've got a new one. I do, in fact, have the uncut version of American Psycho here, which we're going to talk a little bit about what got cut. Obviously, we love an uncut version. But before that, I was having a little debate with Al during the break, and I think I am, in fact, going to do something a little bit unusual, mix it up for you all, and we're going to start out with our film theory rant corner, because this is the longest rant corner that I've written in a long time, and maybe the longest ever. It's beefy because I got really mad writing this one.
Oh no.
And I also think it's a good one to start with because it sets the tone for a lot of the conversation around the movie, because this movie has been talked about so much.
That's why I'm like excited. I feel like all of us probably know a little bit, but I'm so curious to see what you're pulling.
It's one of those movies that, like, I feel like almost everybody who, like, studied film in college watched it at some point. Everybody, like, if you've dated men at any point in your life, you have an ex who is obsessed with American Psycho. Everyone has at least one. Probably, like, had a poster on the wall at some point. Like, it is a type for a reason. And so I kind of want to start the conversation there because I think it's important.
It's just it's not even a film rant corner. It's just a personal.
It's just a personal rant corner.
I'm just kidding.
Are we though?
Yeah.
I mean, you can see film theory rant
Holy
corner.
shit! Did I see the word asshole like highlighted in
Yes. There's a reason why. It's an in joke because the word asshole is cut from the movie at one point.
Oh, funny.
So we're going to talk about that. But I have this labeled film theory rant corner. Ellis equals asshole edition.
Yep.
This is referring, of course, to Bret Easton Ellis, the author of the novel American Psycho. Came out in 1991. This adaptation came out in 2000, directed by Mary Harron, who's, in case you couldn't tell from her name, a woman who's a director. Which we haven't talked about a whole lot of those. We've talked about, I think, one in the entire history of the podcast.
Two, I think. Yeah, maybe max.
Because Jennifer's Body is the only one I can think
Pet
of.
Sematary.
But we haven't officially covered it on the pod yet. We referenced it in the very first episode.
Why do I always think we did a full
but we haven't
episode
done
on
a full fat episode on it. So
fatty episode.
Yeah, I think Jennifer's Body is the only one we've covered with a female director up until now. So
So here we are.
I'm here to talk to you a little bit about Bret Easton Ellis's feelings on the record about female directors.
Oh God. Yay, tell us what a man said about a woman, Siena. We really want to know.
So I will give the caveat that this comes from a 2010 interview. So this is 14 years ago. Maybe he's a better person now. I don't care.
Yeah.
He said
words were said and words
have meaning.
Forever.
In particular, when you say something in a conversation to a reporter that you've been quoted on the record about many times, and then you come back and you double down on it, even if it's from 2010, I'm going to come back and I'm going to quote you on it.
Yeah, don't double down.
Yeah. So let's find out what he had to say. Particularly because he was sharing these takes. 2010 is pre-Me Too movement, but it's still 10 years post his film being adapted by a female director to widespread acclaim. People fucking love this movie.
Yeah.
It's, I would argue, one of the most successful movies by a female director that has ever been made. And
do you think it's because people
don't know that it's a woman? Yes, I do. And that is, to me, part of what makes this quote so fascinating, because he has a very detailed theory about what makes a female director and what their work looks like.
Yes, again, as a man, please tell me.
Yes. So additional context, this is coming in response to comments he made saying so this interviewer asks him in 2010, you tweeted recently about the fact that you really liked Andre Arnold's Fish Tank and that it might make you change your feelings on female directors. Do you want to talk about that? And he said, yeah, in fact, I do. Which, like, no, you don't. No, you don't. Keep your fucking mouth shut,
actually, you
Bret.
should have just...
So, all right. Take a deep breath and buckle up, everybody, for his stance on female directors.
Buckled.
Quote.
Ooh.
There's something about the medium of film itself that I think requires the male gaze. We're watching, we're aroused by looking, whereas I just don't think women respond to that way to films just because of how they're built. They have a level of arousal that's not so stimulated by the visual. I think, to a degree, all the women I named aren't particularly visual directors. You could argue that Lost in Translation is beautiful, but is that cinematographer Lance Accord? I don't know. Regardless of the business aspect of things, is there a reason why there's not a female Hitchcock or a female Scorsese or a female Spielberg? I mean, the best art is made under not an indifference to, but a neutrality toward the kind of emotionalism that I think can be a trap for women directors. End quote. Want to take a breath?
I feel like I buckled up, but I still...
It's still so much
still
worse
went through
than
the
you could
windshield.
imagine. Yeah.
Still got really damaged along the way.
This is why I like gave so many quotes.
Can you
so
imagine?
many like couching
Can
the context
you
of this
saying that?
because it
and,
is
like,
such
believing that?
a wild thing to say in general, but in 2010,
I also
like
just
this
wanna go back
sound
to, like, who set up that
this-
system
yeah, and like this
for men?
this quote would have been wildly offensive in like the 1970s. The fact that he's getting away with
It's
saying
tough.
this shit in 2010, that's why I had to bring it up and be like, yeah, this is 14 years ago. I don't fucking care. He said this in 2010 about his Twitter feed.
Yeah.
If you're talking Twitter, that's too recent to be talking like this.
Also
Twitter.
Twitter.
But so, and it's also, this I think gets into something that I think you and I have maybe talked about like off air a little bit. I don't think we've talked about it on the podcast, but this
okay.
is particularly, I've had debates about this with a lot of men who I've tried to talk to about the fact that this was written by a misogynist who say it can't be written by a misogynist. He's a gay man. Yeah.
Do we not know anything about just... Hey, listen,
How
just
misogyny
knock
works,
off
like
gay?
it's still a man.
It's a man, baby.
It's a man, baby.
It's a man. It is a man.
Also, like, okay, first of all, there is Bret Easton Ellis is somebody who has gone by a lot of different labels for his sexuality. He's called himself gay, he's called himself straight, he's called himself bi. He has dated people of all different genders. Now he refers to himself as gay. I think he's somebody who maybe, had he come from a different generation, would be somebody who'd really love the word queer. He's not from the generation that uses the word queer. I don't want to give him a label that he doesn't like. Point of all this is he is somebody in the queer umbrella. I don't know what term to use to apply to him. He is
A man.
experiences same-sex attraction and he's a man.
Yeah.
So
Wild comment.
Wild
I don't think
comment.
anyone listening would ever say something.
but I was like,
but-
let's break it down a little bit, shall we?
Yeah,
Because to me,
truly.
there are three main things that I take from this that I think we need to examine because I think he's making 3 points here. One of these points is the thing he says at the end about neutrality towards emotion. And first of all, just like I as a person don't believe that neutrality in media exists. I don't think people are ever neutral. I think if you're telling yourself that you're being neutral towards something, you need to take a couple steps back and think about it because there is
Let's
no
not
such
lie
thing
to
as neutrality in
ourselves.
this world. However, even if you want to buy into the idea that one can be neutral, I think we can all agree that the driving engine of narrative film is emotion.
Yeah. Well, I took a nonfiction and film like studies class, and it was like all these and like the whole point of that and the whole conversation we would have around every single film is
You
like,
can't be neutral.
Can you actually come from a neutral standpoint?
And the answer
like,
is no.
The answer is no. It's like no. You can say that all day long. You just being directly on that dot of neutral is not something.
It's
that
not
exists.
possible. And the fact that so many men think that they are on that dot of neutral is something that you should maybe be thinking about when you're thinking about your own biases. However, getting back into my film theory rant corner here, I think that then when we talk about films we love,
Mhm.
whether you're a film critic or a nerd or just somebody who watches movies for enjoyment at the end of the day, if somebody asks you what your favorite movie is and why, I guarantee you will use emotional words to describe it. Whether it's a comedy, a drama, a horror movie, you'll be talking about how funny you found it. You'll talk about how emotional it was,
Well, how
how
do
it
you
made you
How do
cry.
you talk about art without having?
Yeah. Or you will talk about how genuine the emotions on screen were. You'll talk about how the performances were so real.
Yeah.
Everything, when you're talking about narrative film and you're
Yeah.
trying to describe it doing well,
Yeah,
it
it's
all
wild.
comes back to emotion.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Question
talking out of your
mark?
ass is a thing, and he definitely was good at that.
he was. So, 2, he says, let's take the business aspect out of things.
Okay.
You
Brett,
can't do that
let's do that.
because we live in a world where film in particular, out of all of the kinds of art you can make,
bro.
is more
It's
tied
the
to business than
biggest
any
bit.
other art
Yeah.
form out there. And again, I go back to the example of Spielberg because he's the one who brought Spielberg up, right? Saying, why have we never
Mhm.
had a female Spielberg? It's
Mhm.
because there are no women who are good enough. Well, we talked about Spielberg. When he was 26, he blew up his film's budget to 3 times what it was supposed to be at a time when nobody thought that it was going to even be finished. And nobody thought the film was going to be any good. And he went on to have the most successful career in Hollywood and get name dropped in
Well, 'cause
conversations like
Again,
this.
he's in a system that benefits him, so he's not
Exactly.
going to see where he's not. He's
Right.
privileged. He's
Right.
not going to see these things. It's a system
Right.
set up by men. Why would it not?
Exactly. And so
all of it.
if we want to play by his rules and say, let's
This is a-
let's
what an idiot. He actually sounded like an idiot.
he sounds like an idiot. But if we want to play by those rules and say, okay, let's play out the mental example of a female Spielberg.
Mhm.
Let's say that there's this wild turn of events and in 1974, a 26-year-old woman is hired out of the blue to direct her first feature. She's given $3 million. Her shark is destroyed. She comes back and is like, actually, I need $6 million.
Meanwhile, smelling celery.
Yeah. Meanwhile,
Yeah.
she's got celery stuffed under her pillow. She'd be fired.
Oh my God! Can you imagine? Headlines
She'd
everywhere.
be fired.
Banned. Never trust a woman in Hollywood.
She
for
would
the
be
next,
a laughing
yeah.
stock. It would be
Yeah.
cited as a reason why women can't direct
Yes.
movies.
Yep.
It would be cited as a
Yep.
reason to never give a woman a $3 million budget again.
Yeah.
And so we can't take the business out of this because if we've never given a woman the chance to fuck up that Spielberg has gotten in order to get to this point, then there's no point of comparison because that's what it takes to become the caliber of artist that you're talking about is for people to keep giving you the chance and the space to fuck up. And
Yep.
women artists historically, in film in particular, because of the money involved, because of the business involved, we do not, and this is me speaking as an NB person, but a person who gets put in that category, we do not get that chance.
Yep.
So you can't take those apart. Third point.
Snaps, baby.
Does film require the male gaze? Here, I'm going to say something people
Yeah.
might find a little controversial coming from me.
Ooh.
I do agree that film is at its best when it's voyeuristic because it's a
We've talked about
voyeuristic
that
medium.
on a Rear Window
We have,
episode. Yeah,
which is also,
yeah.
of course, we talked about it in that episode because that's where the term male gaze comes from, is from the movie Rear Window. However, this is something I feel really passionately about that I've not had an opportunity to rant on the podcast about yet, and I'm really excited that I
This
do
is why
right
this
now.
is the big rant corner.
I had to stir it out here, you guys.
I love that
I told
so
you it
much.
was really long. He made me so mad, guys. I had to. I had to.
love this. Valid points across the board.
So here's the thing. I think, again, I do think it is at its best when film embraces the voyeurism that exists in both the media and directors. Because directors are pervs. I say this as a director.
Absolutely.
We're pervs.
Totally.
You have to be to go into this.
Yeah.
However, for me, when we use the term male gaze as a stand-in for voyeurism, when we conflate those two and treat it as if what male gaze means is voyeurism, what voyeurism means is the male gaze, we are actually doing a disservice to male directors. And I know that sounds like a wild thing coming from me.
I feel like I just double took it.
Yes. I told you this was going to be a controversial Siena take.
Who took over your body?
However, here's my thinking.
Yeah.
When you do that, when you say what the male gaze means is just men being voyeurs, you are reducing male directors' aesthetic and artistic individuality to their genitals. You are saying that the difference between, and I brought in examples here, want to take two very voyeuristic movies made by male directors that are constantly talked about as examples of the male gaze. You have Rear Window on one hand, take Blue is the Warmest Color on the other hand.
Oh my God, that was a
wildly different movies.
Boy, oh boy,
Yeah,
are
male
they.
director.
No fucking shit.
Wildly different movies.
Wow, that was one of my queer awakenings too.
Me too. And an incredibly voyeuristic movie, and I fucking love it. And also a movie that's been accused of having the male gaze. And yet look how differently the voyeurism plays in those two different movies. What is the trait that they share in common? They embrace that the medium is voyeuristic. I think when you say movies need the male gaze, what you're actually saying is movies need misogyny. Period.
Boom. Boom, boom, boom.
And
yes,
they
yes,
don't.
Yes. Yep.
Bing, bang, boom. Moving on from Film Theory Rant Corner.
So tightly wrapped, that last sentence, because it's true.
It's true. Movies don't need the male gaze. Movies don't need misogyny. Movies need voyeurism, and there's a difference. You can be voyeuristic without being misogynistic.
Yep.
And if you say that every single male director who embraces the voyeurism in his own medium is representing the male gaze, what you are saying is, I can't see any of the things that make this person an individual, and the things.
I think we're just being fancy
an individual. I was trying to say
like
individuality, but an individual. What you're saying is, I can't see any of the things that make this artist an individual. All I can see is their dick.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, that's pathetic.
Yeah.
That's pathetic.
Yeah. I mean, when talking about films like these, like they're so inherently like from that perspective.
Yes.
And like you said, like there's such, you know, who's the majority of the fans of probably both of these films?
Men.
And it's men.
It's men.
It's to that point.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Which I also think, if you're talking about how all of these films are meant for the male gaze, and are kind of created for this this fetishization of women, how can you then also say that a movie like American Psycho is an example of the failure of that?
Yeah.
Because this whole quote is set up by him saying that Mary Harron is one of these emotional woman directors who can't do the voyeurism thing. So let's talk about how fucking well Mary Harron does voyeurism, shall we?
Oh my God, I love that intro to this. That was an amazing way, because I hate to say, I did not know.
That it's a female director?
Didn't know. So.
And I will also say, I have a lot. I'm not going to call anybody out by name here. But I have a lot of male film bro friends.
Ring, ring. Pick up the phone. Who are they?
Who pride themselves on not liking this movie because they say it's misogynistic.
Well, we're talking to
and
you
all I
watching.
can do
You're
is
listening.
look at them and laugh, because it's like, honey,
This movie's so good.
this movie's not for you.
Yeah.
It's not for
that's
you.
our quote. This movie's not
It's
for
not
you.
for you. So let's
And
dive
good.
in.
Because this movie is amazing.
It's amazing. I'd
What-
expected it to play a little bit worse on a rewatch. I just like.
I was
it.
gonna say,
I
what's your
love it more every
rewatch?
time.
What's your first watch? I'm
Oh my
so
God.
like, oh no. Do you have a full story around
So
this?
part of the reason I brought in my DVD is because this is the copy of it that I first watched.
Okay.
It was a gift to me.
Bye, bro.
No. This was a Christmas gift from my mom, Al.
That checks out.
Yep. She knows
Tamara.
me well.
Yeah.
The woman
she
knows
gets
me
it.
fucking well.
Raccoons.
Yep.
We got American Psycho.
Yep. American Psycho and raccoons, baby. That's
Yeah,
my mom in a
We just always say
In two
raccoons
objects.
and whatever we're talking about.
yeah, raccoons and
Yeah.
whatever the thing is.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
Tamara.
yeah.
Yep. Just
Oh
add
my God.
raccoons.
That's
and Tamara's there.
amazing.
Yeah.
How old?
I was in college at the time.
Oh, I was in college too when I first saw it.
Ah,
Yeah.
what was your context?
I think it was a film class one, and
Ah.
I was like embarrassingly had not seen it.
Well, and it's fascinating that this was
so
shown to you
gross.
in a film class, and you still didn't know that it was a female director, because I
Listen,
feel like that's
I
often.
was really drunk during college.
I mean, fair. But first of all, I also think, though, that that's part
Yeah.
of why this movie has the success it does, is that it is so often talked about as like but it's not like a women's movie. Like, it's directed by a woman, but it's not like a woman
directed
type
film.
movie.
Yeah.
And like,
Isn't that
bitch,
wild?
yeah, it is.
Yeah,
Yeah, it fucking is. Have
Yeah.
you watched the way it shoots women's bodies? Yes, it is.
Well, that's where I think like now say like maybe at one point I know and just like it fell out of my brain. But in this moment
Yeah.
and watching it this time, did
Oh,
not
yeah.
recognize that. Did not look at the credits. Sorry. Sorry, y'all. But it does make sense because it is shot in a way that and like there's men directors do, hey, you know, whatever. But
which it goes to
it makes it clicks. It clicks a little bit more.
So let's see. Where do we even?
Oh my god! Yeah, where do we go?
Where do we go from there? I started out so heated. My
You're like,
God,
we're done.
I've got to cool down now. So, I mean, to frame all of this, part of the reason that we did this now is obviously because it's Christmassy. Part of the movie takes place around Christmas.
I love how you just went on that rant. We're like, it's festive, guys. It's the holiday. We're fuzzy. It's the Christmas spirit. It's the ghost of Christmas misogyny. I don't know.
Oh my God, the ghost of Christmas misogyny.
Holiday parties,
truly haunting me right now.
Holiday parties, petri dish. Petri dish for that. So this might be the perfect thing for that reason.
God,
all the bad parts of the holiday.
However, the other reason why American Psycho is even more in the ethos right now than it is usually, because this movie is frequently memed, this is a very memed movie, is because, of course, Luca Guadagnino is about to do an adaptation of it. I tried to look up cast. I couldn't find any info that's been released yet, but after how well he did with my beloved Suspiria, I trust him. I feel like he is the sort of director that I trust to, in remaking this material, not try to do the same thing and find what he can bring to it that's different.
Right.
And that's what you've got to do in order to justify it to me. So, Mary Harron, a little bit about her. She also I Shot Andy Warhol, which we'll talk a little bit about the connection of that to her getting this gig. She also did The Notorious Betty Page. She co-wrote the script for this, but at this point, we have to shout out her co-writer, the lesbian icon herself, Miss Guinevere Turner.
Okay, Guinevere, pop off.
Oh my God, we love her. She's so hot. She's in the movie, first of all, which is part of why I say this. Yeah, she is. Fun. Do you remember the redheaded woman that Pat takes home? Yeah. Who's like really drunk and she's like making jokes about like, oh my God, I'm not a lesbian just because I went to Sarah Lawrence.
Oh, that's her?
That
oh my God, stop.
is our lesbian
so
screenwriter herself and a Sarah Lawrence alum, and she gave herself that joke as a little in-joke.
Has she acted before?
She's acted since. This might be one of the earlier things she was in. But Holy shit. She goes on to, she's actually a recurring guest star in The L Word. Yeah. Lesbian icon. Yeah. Also co-wrote Notorious Betty Page. She plays Alice's ex-girlfriend Gabby on The L Word. If you're an L Word person. Yes.
Oh, yes, I am.
I thought you are.
Oh, yes, I am.
Obviously, I am too.
Yeah, Generation Q2 got canceled too soon. Very upset about it.
Yeah, she also, interestingly, Guinevere grew up in the Lyman family cult, which I think, like, the fact that she is somebody who grew up in a cult and left it,
wild.
Feel like adds to why this is such a good script. Yeah, in like ways that I can't quite put my finger on, because that idea of
a lot
of
lived life and experience and learning about oneself. And,
I think,
you know,
particularly
I imagine,
with the idea of the stuff that charismatic white men can get away with, I think is something she has a unique personal experience with. So.
That does give this a lot of context.
Yeah, just wanted to shout that out.
Wow.
Stars Christian Bale as Patrick Bateman. Of course, we know him best as Batman. Just
or
take out one of the E's.
When he was a baby, just singing and dancing.
Singing about Santa Fe.
Singing about Santa Fe. When I moved here, my friends texted me that song.
Oh my God. I was obsessed with that as a little kid. I would put it on all the time.
I got the DVD that one Christmas. I started doing all the dances the whole day in the living room.
Oh my God, I love that.
Yeah, love
I think it's time for Newsies reappreciation, y'all.
Bill
I think
Pullman. We get Lewis Pullman, his son.
Yes.
Oh. Yeah,
at this time, though, he was very much an unknown, and he came to this immediately after. Yeah, he'd done Newsies, but that was like one of the few things he'd done. He was so young. He'd done like a little bit of work as a child actor, but he came to this project immediately off of Velvet Goldmine for Todd Haynes, which we'll talk about that when we get into the stories of how this was cast. We also have Justin Theroux as Timothy Bryce, who's in Mulholland Drive, and I Shot Andy Warhol. We have Chloe Sevigny as Jean, our 360 queen from this year's Charlie XCX video.
Oh my God, yeah. I love her, man.
So
She's
good.
such an icon.
Love. She's also in Kids. She was in Bones and All, which I'm just going to put this out there now. I suspect that Luca will have her do a cameo in his version since she was in a movie by him and was in the original.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
so watch out.
hope.
I'm fingers crossed for a Chloe appearance.
That'd be so great.
Also in Boys Don't Cry, we have Reese Witherspoon, who was actually pregnant at the time.
Really?
Mhm.
How
She
old
was like
she in
3
this?
months pregnant.
I'm
sure.
gonna be honest. I fucking forgot she was in this.
Yeah, me too. And like I love Reese Witherspoon.
Oh my god, she's great. And she's
and
great in this.
she's great. Just like immensely forgettable.
In the scope of this film, which is large,
Yeah.
she gets bundled.
Which is really interesting to me because it's not like that's the case with all the female characters.
No, Chloe
But
Sevigny, is like all I think of. I think her
really
and fucking Christian
interesting.
Bale.
I think of the sex workers mostly.
Really?
I think of the sex workers
So
mostly. And we'll
funny.
talk about that more as we get into
Yeah.
it. But we have Jared Leto as Paul Allen, who's of course also in Suicide Squad, Morbius, and what I wrote down as the supremely something Dallas Buyers Club, which I will never forgive him for taking a job that should have gone to a trans actress.
Yeah. He's also in a band.
He's also in a band.
Also, kind of seems like a cult leader.
Also kind of seems like a cult leader.
He did a camp.
There,
He had a camp. It was the time when like the
Somebody
music wasn't
investigate
musicking.
that.
Yeah, he did like a weird little
I don't
music
trust
camp.
that. I don't trust that at all.
Yeah,
I mean,
he started to give me
bad
weird vibes.
Bad
He
vibes.
swatted the mic.
Yeah. Ugh.
Get him away from
Get
me.
out here. Get out of here, Jared Leto. We also, of course, have our big dick icon, Willem Dafoe, as Donald Kimball. I wrote down my favorite Hollywood weirdo. Of course, he's also in The Lighthouse, the upcoming Nosferatu, and Antichrist. Cinematographer is Andrzej Sekula, who's a Polish cinematographer. Again, we come back to our Polish cinematographers. I told you
Yeah,
it's a
love
through
that.
line. And Andrzej also shot Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction, if his name sounds familiar. So big Tarantino collaborator. I brought in 3 taglines for you. I think they're all good.
3 for American Psycho.
They're
Wild.
all good. One of them is killer looks.
Stop.
Yeah, I thought you'd
That's
enjoy that.
Great.
We have an Al style tagline that's a quote from the film, which is, "I think my mask of sanity is about to slip."
Oh my god. Great.
Great. And then my personal favorite, American Psycho. No introduction necessary.
It's so fitting to the character.
It's so, yeah. Which, like, I understand probably wouldn't sell the movie if you don't know about it.
Like, but now.
Oh, hits so hard.
It kind of makes you, but not knowing,
it's
you'd be like, what the
mysterious.
fuck is this film?
No introduction necessary.
Like, who the fuck are they? I
Oh.
don't know.
What does his business card look
really
like?
Pulling into the male
Yeah.
ego of like, well, I'll show you. I don't know why they're marching up like that.
That's what male
You know how
egos look
men
like.
walk,
Yeah.
you know, like this. With their muscles. I don't know.
Oh, this is
I'll
the episode
shut
that
up
gets
now.
us banned by men's rights activists everywhere. God, I can only hope. Okay, so background.
Hey, I said they have muscles. You're welcome. They probably
showed. That's all they want. As a little banned books shout out for Beastly Books.
Hey, we love freedom of speech.
Yeah, this book was named the 53rd most banned and challenged book between 1990 and 1999 by the American Library Association.
We should get it at Beastly Books.
I was thinking that. Let's
keep your
cultivate
eyes
about
out.
that.
Yeah, beastlybooks.com. Let's get that on there. Everyone DM us.
Yes.
We run social. We'll pass it along.
Truly. This book was obviously widely taken as misogynistic at the time. Gloria Steinem in particular really hated it, which is particularly funny because she went on post this film to actually marry Christian Bale's dad. So she becomes Christian Bale's stepmother after having gone on these very public rants about the film. And she actually, there was this whole thing where for a while Leonardo DiCaprio was supposed to play the lead and Mary Herron really didn't want him to. And Mary Herron dropped out based on this. And then Gloria Steinem comes in, takes Leonardo DiCaprio out to a baseball game and begs him not to take the movie, being like, you have all of these like teenage girl fans, they're going to come see you in this and it's going to destroy your career. It's going to like fuck up these kids. Don't do this. And he agrees and decides to drop the movie. He was going on to another movie called The Beach. So like he had a schedule conflict.
The Titanic.
A little movie called The Titanic.
Oh, The Beach Fox.
I haven't seen The Beach.
Oh, Beach is...
Oh, Danny Boyle, right?
I don't know.
I think it's Danny.
I don't
I think
know.
it's Trainspotting guy. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
We gotta
yes.
confirm thumbs up.
Love that.
Devastating.
Ooh, sounds up my alley.
Have fun.
That
Text me
sounds
after
very
that
up
one.
my alley.
Wow. Again, in the case of like, where would their careers have gone if they would have? I think that
Wildly
was the
different.
right choice.
It was the right choice. And we'll talk a little bit about it, but the casting of this movie and the directing of this movie were deeply controversial and went through a lot of different iterations.
Oh, wow.
So,
Okay.
it also, just like another, while we're on the subject of banned books, this book was so targeted for censorship that they actually had to sell it in shrink wrap, like Playboy magazines, because they were so scared that people would open it, read it, and get offended by it in like trash books in the store. I don't even know what.
Isn't that wild to
sold
think
in
about,
shrink wrap,
like-
which kind of makes me like, can we get it shrink wrapped for Beasley?
Yeah,
Like,
that's
kind of fucks.
really cool.
Right? That would
it's
make
not
me
cool,
want to
but,
buy it
like,
more.
Yeah. Read at your own risk.
Exactly. So read banned books, y'all.
Yeah, truly, truly.
Ellis started out saying that Bateman was based on his dad, but later goes on to admit it's more about himself. It's more of a self-insert, and says, quote, I bullshitted at the time because I didn't want to finally own up to the responsibility of being Patrick Bateman, so I laid it on my father. I laid it on Wall Street, which, like, I'll give credit where credit's due. That's an honest thing to say. You're still a misogynist.
Right. Doesn't change anything.
So, moving into the writing, people at the time, including Bret Easton Ellis, considered this like an unfilmable book, largely because it was full of so much graphic violence and sex. But so producer Edward Pressman buys the rights in 1992. Johnny Depp expresses interest.
That makes sense.
I could see that. I don't think it would have been good. I could see him being interested in it.
Yeah,
it would be terrible
same.
casting.
Yeah.
But, Pressman then approaches Stuart Gordon, who directed Reanimator, to do this. But decides that's the wrong fit. He then attaches, this is such a wild combination. He then attaches Brad Pitt to star and David Cronenberg to direct. Yeah, that was my reaction. Wild, right?
I gotta pause on that one.
Yeah.
My brain is going wild with what that would look like.
And get this.
Can we do that now?
Right?
Can that be the remake?
Wait. So listen to this.
Oh my God.
David Cronenberg then has Bret Easton Ellis write a draft of the script, like adapt his own material for him.
Of course.
But he has a whole lot of specifications about it.
As he would.
Yeah. However, they're wildly out of character because one of them is he wants there to be almost no violence in it. Which, like, I'm sorry, this is David Cronenberg we're talking about?
Wait, Cronenberg didn't want the...
Cronenberg wanted almost no violence.
Whoa.
Yeah. I don't... Yeah,
What's happening on this here day?
He wants most of the violence excised. He wants no scenes in restaurants or clubs because he thought they were static and boring. But, like, that's the majority of the story is in restaurants and clubs for very good reason. And he insisted that it only be 65 to 70 pages.
Okay.
Saying that he filmed, like, 2 minutes a page instead of one, so he needed the script to be teensy tiny.
Oh my gosh.
Which, like, you can't tell a good story in 65 pages. I'm sorry, you can't.
Yeah, that's...
You can't. And Ellis...
Rain Corner was...
Exactly, truly. Rain Corner was at least twice that length. Ellis, looking at this in retrospect, says that he thinks he was so bored by his own material at this point that he basically just, like, did whatever the fuck he wanted with the adaptation. And so the version of the script that Bret Easton Ellis writes for David Cronenberg to direct and Brad Pitt to star in ends with a musical sequence set to Barry Manilow's Daybreak taking place on the top of the World Trade Center.
That gives I'm bored with my material. That gives all the cocaine, all the alcohol, all the chain smoking. Yeah. I'm so depressed.
That gives wild artistic self-destruction.
Wow. Yeah, he was really just trying to end it all there. Like,
he was like, just get me out of here.
I'm done with my career at this point in time.
No, they said this was career suicide. Can I go for that, actually?
Or he's trying to be like, I am a male, writer.
Yeah,
Let me just see how far I can push this and get
this made.
Where's
my male gaze taking me today?
Let's see how much I can step over women with my absurd
Well, you see, the
ideas.
thing is, women are just too emotional. So why don't we just have a Barry Manilow's Daybreak scene on the top of the Empire State Building? I'm sorry, the World Trade Center, not the Empire State Building. Even worse.
Yeah.
Even worse.
Oh my God.
There's that.
He's just, the picture you were painting is getting clearer and clearer.
He's quite a character, isn't he?
That's one way to call him. Yeah.
So Cronenberg is like, that is terrible.
Thank fuck.
I'm gonna
Thank
fire you.
fuck.
Hire another writer.
Thank
He hires
fuck.
another writer. He's like, okay, this is even worse. I hate this even more.
Oh, God.
Drops out. Then
What's worse than that? Moby Dick, space exploration alien movie, The Thing.
okay, now can we combine the two and
Yeah,
have
actually.
a scene at the end where the thing is on the top
Yeah.
of
Driving the ship on
yes.
top of the Empire or the Trade Center.
on top of the World Trade
playing
Center
Barry
playing
Manilow.
Barry Manilow.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Perfect.
yeah,
We
love
fixed
it.
Somebody call Toby Hooper.
We did it non-emotionally too. So
Which is the key.
Yeah.
That's why we're such good proponents of the male gaze.
absolutely.
So-
The men would have loved that. That'd be so fair.
well, I mean, it's just so much more neutral, Al.
Oh, absolutely. No feelings involved.
Oh, I'm filled with rage. Okay, so
It's holiday
then-
cheer, Sienna. It's holiday cheer.
it's holiday spirit.
It's a holiday spirit.
My holiday spirit is rage. That's
Yeah,
what the spirit
same.
is for me.
2024, that's the vibe.
It is. Okay, so flash forward. It's 1996. Mary Harron is at Cannes. She's at the premiere of I Shot Andy Warhol. She gets a call with this offer to direct this movie. She had tried reading the novel before when it came out in 91, gave up on it as too violent. But at this point, she decides to revisit it. And she's like, wait a second. Enough time has passed now that the setting of this in the late 80s can actually be a period piece. And that can be my window in.
Oh.
Because since this is set, the novel is set in 89, the movie is set in 87, based on the Reagan speech that we hear at the
Okay.
end. So we get like a specific time pinpoint. And she's like, it almost reminded me of hearing Emerald Fennell talk about Saltburn being set in 2006, where she's like, it is just far enough. And it's
Yep.
almost that same
That's so
time
cool.
gap too, where she's like, it's just far enough that I can use that to do this social commentary on modern issues in a way that's going to feel just distanced enough for people to not be hurt by it.
I love that
Yeah.
thought process.
Yeah, yeah. Too bad she's too emotional.
I know, yeah. She really needed to chill out there.
So she agrees to take it on the condition that she'd be allowed to write her own adaptation. They're
Love.
like, that's fine. She brings
love.
right? She brings on Guinevere to help, which like again,
Wow.
always hire a lesbian to help you write the script.
Really?
Like,
If you're gonna take anything from this podcast, say
always hire a lesbian. Yeah.
Those should be
Please
our
just
shirts.
soundbite that.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
It's-
Honestly. And so Guinevere, I found there's a great oral history of the making of this movie, and I got a lot of quotes from
Ooh.
people from this. So Guinevere says in that, Mary said, "You're gonna hate me," because she knows I don't like scary movies, but I think we could make a really good movie out of this book. So I read it and I was like, ew, I hate you, but I see what you mean.
Yeah.
It's actually really funny in addition to being horrifying, and with the right spin, it could be a really subversive feminist movie. And I loved that because it
Good
felt
take on
so real that she
Yeah.
would read it and be like, you're right, I can see that there's like a diamond in the rough here. But it's almost like with material like this that is so much dark satire, you need somebody who's lived it to bring it to the surface. And like, they've lived it.
Wow.
So then, now I move into some of the casting.
Mhm.
At first, Billy Crudup is attached, and then he drops out because he's nervous about the material.
Yeah.
Mary sends the script to Christian Bale, but he's never read the book, and so he's shooting Velvet Goldmine, and he's busy on set, and he probably never even reads it, so he
Yeah.
just doesn't respond. And she is freaking out. She's like,
Yeah.
I need Christian Bale. And so she calls out Velvet Goldmine producer Christine Vachon on the phone. And she's like, can you please come up to Christian on set and beg him to take a
Yeah.
peek? And Christine Vachon is like, yeah, sure. So she makes Christian sit down and read the script.
Stop.
He does. He finds it hilarious. And he's like, oh shit, what if it's not supposed to be funny? And so Christian Bale,
He didn't realize he gets it.
yeah, Christian Bale calls her up and he's like, I'm really nervous that I'm interpreting this wrong, but I'm
gonna
just
ask you
going
a
to
dumb
put it out
question."
here. I think this is the funniest script I've ever read. Was that the goal? And she's like, finally somebody who gets
Oh my
it.
god.
And so-
Truly meant to be.
And so she flies him out. He comes and auditions in her living room. And here's a quote from her.
Can you imagine?
Yeah. I sort of had the feeling that a lot of other actors kind of thought Bateman was cool, and he didn't. He could recognize that this guy is not aspirational, and
Yeah.
all the other actors approaching this role were approaching it as aspirational. And you can't
Can you imagine
have
thinking
that.
that?
She said that at first, because obviously Christian Bale is Welsh, which I always forget, he was having
Oh my God,
trouble with the
yeah.
accent. And so he was like going in and out of the accent. And
Yeah.
like some of the other people involved were a little worried about that. And she was like, no.
No,
The
not
accent's
concerned.
the least of my worries.
Yeah.
He's got the idea. That's the important
Yeah.
part. He'll get
Yeah,
the
we can
accent.
work with the other stuff.
And I honestly think the fact that he is a British actor doing an American accent actually adds an interesting layer to it.
The
Because
uncanniness of him a
yeah,
little bit.
and the voice that he gives this character is very nasal. It's
Oh,
very,
it's
it like
so
lives in the
good.
nose, and it's like an East
it's like-
Coast upper class American accent.
It's like this pompous, like,
Yeah.
kind of like
And
thing.
there is something about it that has like this uncanny quality that I think is
Yeah.
because it is
I
not
always
his
for
real
fucking
accent.
get that too, and I
Yeah.
know that fact.
I always
'Cause
forget
interviews
too.
always throw me off.
Me
with him,
too. I
but
always
that
think he's
makes
American.
So much sense. And so you
Mhm.
probably almost like to a point had to do that
Yeah.
to get through it to be able,
Mhm.
and that's why it's
And so
but it's
it
like the
has
most
this like almost like artificial quality to it that's so good for the
totally
character.
fucking forgotten. It's funny that he struggled with it, and then we get the most
Mhm.
like the
It's so
first fucking words
perfect.
out of his mouth. You're
Yeah.
like, and we're in it,
Yeah,
baby. Like I
yeah.
forgot that this is
Mhm.
how good this film is.
Well, and of course, this film has been sampled over and over again in songs
Oh my
because
gosh.
the way he monologues is so chilling.
Yeah.
And so much of that is the voice.
Yeah.
So, however, all is not peachy from there. The studio
Peachiness stops.
the
It
peachiness stops here.
We draw the line with too many peaches.
The peach buck stops here. So studio doesn't want Bale. As I said, they want Leonardo
Wow.
DiCaprio, which I think is a terrible choice in retrospect. I think
Yeah, they're like, we're fine ruining his career after
Yeah.
this.
I
or at the time.
personally, I think DiCaprio is somebody who is great at playing guys who are slimy in a pathetic way. I think he's very bad at playing guys who are slimy in a scary way.
Also, good at playing. At the end of the day, all the men would really like him. And the
Yes.
great thing about
Christian Bale, he's unlikable in just the right way.
yeah, like he gave that like Weasley, I'm just trying to like worm my way up. No one really respects or appreciates you in the way that you want.
Yeah.
DiCaprio, like, because even like,
DiCaprio's too boyish.
yeah,
Yeah. He's too
Yeah.
boyish.
yeah, frog rat. He's
Yeah.
very frog.
Yeah.
So
Yes. You need the rat.
yeah,
You need the
we
rat.
did.
You need the rat boy.
God, I can't even.
Gotta get
imagine
the rat
anyone
boy.
else.
So, because they are so insistent on getting DiCaprio,
That's wild.
they fire Mary Harron. And Mary Harron talks about this in retrospect. She's like, they called me up, asked me to meet with him, to meet with Leonardo DiCaprio. And I
Okay.
refused because I was like, if I meet with him, they're going to try and convince me to do it. Because,
Probably in front of fucking him and his managers and everything.
yeah.
too,
And she was like, I can't do that. And so
Aw.
they just fire her. And she's already written the script. She's already, like,
oh, it's her
yeah,
project.
it's her project.
Wow.
And part of the reason she was so reticent to do this was not just that she was like, I don't think this is the right casting, but they'd originally offered her a budget of $6 million.
Okay.
And then they decide they want Leonardo DiCaprio, and they're like, we will pay Leonardo DiCaprio $20 million to appear in the movie, but your budget for the entire rest of production will still be $6 million. And she's like, I
Whoa.
can't do that, then he's the director. Like, he's making so much vastly more than the
Jesus
entire
Christ.
production budget that he's going to be calling all the shots. And then I'm
Yeah.
going to have no creative control. And
Yeah.
she's right. That's exactly what
Or
would
the
have
studio
happened.
would have had it.
Mm-hmm. So
Oof.
she gets fired.
Yeah.
And they hire fucking Oliver Stone of Natural Born Killers fame, who I love but think would have completely missed the mark here because I don't think he's subtle enough. He's
Yeah.
not a subtle dude.
It would have
and-
been. I mean, if it's anything like Natural Born Killers, it would have been a wildly different movie.
And he and DiCaprio were planning on taking this like very gritty psychological approach, which sounds like my actual nightmare for what this movie could have been. Like, I don't want, and this is something Mary Harron talks a lot about, is like part of what she and Bale agreed on was that there cannot be any backstory for Bateman. If we know anything about his family, if we know anything about his childhood, he becomes too human, and we can't let him
Yeah,
be
it's not a
human.
likable character. It's
We
just like
can't let him be
Yep.
human.
Yep.
And Oliver Stone was planning to take the exact opposite approach, where it was
Full
going to be this
backstory.
like Jekyll and Hyde story, and like we're seeing deep into this character's psyche, and we're getting his family backstory, and we're meeting his little brother. And thank God that didn't happen.
Yeah.
So, thankfully, DiCaprio drops the project so that he can make The Beach. And then after DiCaprio drops, Stone drops, and they finally call Heron back, and they're like, "Hey."
Out of desperation.
So,
you
out of
fucks.
desperation. And she's like, "Okay, I'll come back, but only on the condition that I hire Christian Bale."
Look at her.
And so she gets to hire Bale.
I love a director bringing along the actor that they want.
Meanwhile, Christian fucking Bale, man, has been sitting tight for 9 months, turning down other projects that approach him, while knowing that Leonardo DiCaprio is already attached because he's just sitting there biding his time. He's like, Leo's gonna drop.
Yeah.
He's like, Leo's too scared to do this.
Yeah.
This is way too out there for him.
Yeah.
This is my movie.
Yeah,
and so he's
like
researching
how Hollywood works.
a role he doesn't have
Whoa.
and turning down other parts for 9 months just
That's
because he's that confident that he'll get it.
That sounds like him.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was so smart because this is the movie that makes him a star.
Oh, yeah.
This is it.
Absolutely. I didn't realize like this was that early.
This was the one
but
that,
I know,
yeah.
That's wild.
So, he even gets dental work done for the part. Lionsgate tries offering the role to Ewan McGregor, and Christian Bale is friends with him. And he comes up to you and he's like, Ewan, this role is mine. I need you to turn this down.
Yeah.
As my friend, turn this role down.
And Ewan's just a baby.
Ewan's a
He's so
baby.
sweet. Of course he's going to say
terrible casting, also. Like,
that
it would not have been.
That
That was
actually is the most
atrocious.
atrocious one.
Yeah.
I think Johnny Depp over him still.
Yeah, agreed.
Over Ewan.
Yeah. So Bale personally asks him to turn it down.
Oh.
Ewan McGregor turns it down. When they finally agree to cast Bale, you want to know what they paid him?
Oh, peanuts.
$50,000. $50,000 for this performance, and they'd been willing to give DiCaprio $20 million.
Wow.
Yeah. Fuck Hollywood, man.
Yeah.
So, themes approaching history.
Yeah.
I had to shout out here that one of the movies that Mary Harron and her team cite as a major reference, that people have talked about it in academic papers, but also I think this is something that they mention in one of the interviews I found. I think this is one that the cast watched together. A Mario Bava Giallo movie called Hatchet for the Honeymoon.
Hey, do you know that one?
I haven't seen this one yet, but I love Mario Bava.
Okay.
And Bava historian Tim Lucas points out that it's similarly kind of about a killer who's motivated by a desire to understand himself through violence, which I think is a really interesting connection to draw, because that's not the first way I think of to describe it, but it kind of is this, like, he's trying to discover his humanity through these murders, and there's no humanity there to discover. And at the end of the movie,
how I feel like that actually is a perfect like house that Jack built.
Exactly.
That's how. Ooh.
Yeah. Right.
Love.
They're so connected.
Yeah.
So, let's see. IMDb also points out that the name Bateman is probably a little Norman Bates reference, which I love. Oh my God.
Don't take my boy down like that. That's an angel. Don't you dare. He doesn't know what's going on.
Also, a little quote from Mary Harron that I found from an interview like 20 years on down the line that I just thought was so telling. She says, I remember someone objecting to the fact that Bateman was homophobic. Like, really? He's just stabbed a homeless guy in the eye and he's killed 30 people and you're worried about him being homophobic?
Isn't that funny? There was like conversation around Jack too, of like that's the focus.
That's
that
the
we're gonna
focus
have when he's awful. And Lars Ventura was like, why?
That's what you care about?
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
He is literally
look at the content.
The worst
He's murdering
human that
people.
ever existed, and you're gonna like have a conversation about like any part of humanity of him.
Bateman kicks a dog to death.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing?
Like, what timeline are you living on?
Yeah. So
that's so funny.
Oh my God. Incredible behind the scenes story now. Moving on to cast and crew. Oh my God, I love this so much. So Mary Harron, Christian Bale, and Bret Easton Ellis have a dinner together before production starts. Sounds terrible, right?
Where Mary was told to go sit at a separate table at a different restaurant.
So Mary arrives late.
Good for her.
And it's just Bret and Christian to begin with. And Christian Bale
hates it.
Shows up in character and terrifies Bret Easton
I thought Bret
Ellis.
was going to love it because he's also
Oh no, he's fucking shaking in his boots at the table and I love it. So
actually that would be so intimidating.
Yeah. Here's the quote from Ellis. He was in full Patrick Bateman mode in terms of the hair, the suit, and the way he was talking, which makes me think he was probably showing up in an American accent too.
Yeah.
and it was incredibly
Ooh.
distracting and amusing, but then it became less amusing as it kept going. I told him at a certain point, you can
could drop
stop
it?
this. It's really unnerving me. And then Bale is listening to this because this quote comes from the oral history, so they're all kind
Okay.
of sitting together listening to each other, and Bale chimes in here and he goes, I don't recall doing that, but I wouldn't put it past me. It does sound like that would have been kind of fun.
So silly. He deserves that.
Yep.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Yeah, we
I
can drop
love-
the bit now and just whoop it.
Whoop it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like, when's Mary gonna get here?
No, literally. And so he's like, there's like another quote from Ellis where he's like,
He
things
needed to
like
stop
only
being so
like
emotional
calmed
there.
down once Mary appeared. And I'm like, oh, so you need a woman to rescue
Yeah.
you.
I said he should have stopped being so emotional about it. Pause for the petty.
Ugh, pause for the petty.
Pause for the petty.
So Bale famously based his performance obviously partially on that Tom Cruise appearance on Letterman. I
I
think
love
that's
that,
like the
yeah.
most famous
Mhm.
story. He also referenced Nicolas Cage in Vampire's Kiss, which I did not know that part. But he also method acted the whole production, which normally I hate a method actor.
He seems like he gives a little bit methody.
He does.
A little bit.
But
Like
I
he kind of like
also-
leans into a role.
He strikes me as somebody who does it in a way that's much more respectful than it's often done,
Yeah,
which is
yeah,
the line
I think he does it for
me.
the art form for him
Mhm,
and not
mhm.
to be like
Mhm.
I think he enjoys it.
Exactly.
know.
So
It does feel different.
here's like some of the stuff he did. Like he filled his trailer with cutout. Like he did like a collage of people he thought the character would look up to. So his
Oh.
trailer was like full of pictures of Donald Trump, which is terrifying.
That sucks to
Um,
wake up to every day.
He stayed in his American accent the whole time, which actually some of the crew then, when he showed up to the rap party and started speaking in his actual voice, everybody was like, wait,
What's going on?
what's happening?
Who are
Nobody
you?
knew that he was Welsh. He was also
It's a
constantly
compliment.
in and out of the gym. This movie is cited as the place where he starts his famous like Christian Bale body transformations. Because like before this, he never really worked out
Yeah.
much. And so he gets super buff for this
Yeah.
movie. Also got an amazing nickname from Mary Harron, who starts calling him the Robo Actor because during the business card scene, one of the other actors comes up to her afterwards and points out he started sweating at the exact same cue in
Oh.
every single take. So she's like, this guy has control over his sweat glands.
Ew.
Robo actor.
Ew.
So
Ew.
making of shooting lasts 7 weeks, starts in February 99. Do you want to guess what the budget is? I'd given you
said-
like a little
You
hint.
said 6 mil, but did they get a little
They
bit
end up getting
more?
7 mil, which feels still surprisingly tiny to me for what this film
Yeah,
is.
Kind
Especially
of
like
wild.
it looks to me like a
It's
$15
big.
million movie.
It feels big.
She really knows what to do with that
'Cause they
budget.
didn't pay any actors anything.
Truly. Yeah, that can't have been more than scale.
Mm.
Like around scale at the time. So, it was a tiny bit was shot in New York. Most of it's shot in Toronto,
Oh,
where the film was threatened with protests because people were offended by the idea of it. Because the Canadian serial killing couple of Paul Bernardo and Carla
no.
Homolka, the Ken and Barbie killers,
Oh,
had owned a
no.
copy of the novel. And which, like, how is that the movie's fault?
I was gonna say, like,
I also
I don't even know. That's
I like
stupid.
read a bunch of interviews with it, and like even Bret Easton Ellis gets mad about this in retrospect because he's like, I read about that case, and Paul Bernardo was nearly illiterate, so like he probably never even read American Psycho. He
Yeah.
just owned a copy of it.
Yeah, because
Um,
probably they just wanted it like photographed or something. Like that. You know
Yes,
what I mean? Because what it said on there.
absolutely.
That's wild.
Hmm. Heron and Bale rehearsed the murder of Paul Allen without Jared Leto, so his surprise is genuine when he comes running at him with the axe.
Yep.
And that moment when he starts attacking towards the camera, they cover the camera with plexiglass, had the crew just off screen squirting fake blood at Bale's
fun.
face. But it was a happy accident that the blood basically only lands on one half of his face and
Oh,
creates
funny.
this kind of like good side, bad side
Yeah.
kind of vibe. That was completely just a happy film accident.
I had that little fake blood that I've squirted on my face. You cannot
Mhm.
control that shit.
Yeah.
So understandably,
It was just a gift from the film
yeah,
gods.
yeah. Oh my gosh,
Um,
love that.
I wonder if you've heard this story. I think it's like a little bit more of a better known tidbit from this film. For the interview scene with Willem Dafoe, Heron had Willem give 3 different performances. One where he's convinced Bateman's guilty,
Yes.
one where he suspects it but isn't sure,
Mhm.
and one where he's totally in the dark, has no idea that
Yeah.
Bateman did this. And she cuts pieces from all 3 together to make it feel more ambiguous. So it's constantly going back and forth between them. Yeah.
That makes so much fucking sense.
So you could never put your finger on it because it is all
I
fake.
heard they shot those, but I don't know why I didn't know that they cut them all
She
together.
intercut them. Yeah. Isn't that... Oh, I love
That's
that.
how it fucking feels.
I love
I'm
that.
I thought I was being gaslit.
Only
Mary,
in
don't
the
do
good
this
way.
to me.
Only in the
Yeah,
good
in a good
way.
way.
The face mask scene where he peels it off. One take. Got it the first time. And she'd been really nervous about it because she was like, I'm scared that it's going to like peel off in pieces and then it'll destroy the metaphor.
He probably practiced that shit.
Well, you know, he actually apparently... This one I wasn't able to fact check as much, but it sounds very believable to me for everything else that I've heard about Christian Bale. I've seen reports that he went through the character's morning routine that he discusses in the monologue every single morning. So he was probably practicing those face masks. Guinevere was nervous to be directed by her co-writer, and she kept having to redo her scene because the blood wasn't oozing through the sheets the way they wanted. So she had to spend like an entire day covered in blood.
Oh. She probably felt so bad too. She's like, I swear it's not me.
I know.
I'm the problem.
Right?
I swear.
She has like a second little appearance where she's one of the bloody bodies on the floor that he runs past. And she's like, they could have used any bloody body and instead I had to be nude on the floor all day. Why did they do that?
Yeah, those could have just been...
Could have been literally anybody, but small budget. Yeah. This one I highlighted specifically for you, Al, because I thought you'd enjoy it. The sound of the business cards being pulled out, what they used for the Foley, can you guess?
No.
They slowed down the sound of a sword being unsheathed. Yeah, I thought you'd like that.
I love that so much. I don't think you understand how much I love that fact. That might be my favorite one.
Yeah.
And it's so simple.
I like highlighted that specifically as Al tidbit.
Also, like, as someone who like makes our business cards, that scene just means a lot to me. Because it's just like the graphic design,
all
the paper,
the time,
the layout of this, and I'm just like, yeah. Like I'm like in that conversation. So also, I also sound like a hyena for a second when I laughed. Also, I just had to note that I am sorry. The fact that it's a sword.
It's also, oh my God, there's so much to talk about.
I love
here.
Swords. I love
They
a sword.
also
got a sword on me.
Look at that.
Not a real one. If you're not, if you're listening, it's a necklace.
One day.
Imagine.
One day. That would not surprise me at all, actually.
Next time. We'll do medieval horror if there is such thing.
Army of Darkness.
Oh yeah, duh.
Yeah, there you go. What was I gonna say? The other little fact about that business card scene, just since you brought it up, all of the business cards, they all have the same title. They're all vice president of acquisitions. Acquisitions is spelled wrong on all of the business cards.
I'm illiterate. I didn't notice.
Well, and it's probably people have made a connection between that and the 80s movie Wall Street, because there's a joke in Wall Street about there being like 33 vice presidents at this company. And so like there's 6 vice presidents.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, all of their business cards say exactly the same thing, which is a fun little tidbit. Unsurprisingly, super hard to get music rights for such a controversial film. They actually did not get Whitney Houston's permission to use The Greatest Love of All, so they had to go with an orchestral version with no Whitney vocals. There was also a controversy where they had to recall the first 100,000 or 100,000 copies of the soundtrack that were released, including Hip to Be Square, which, while it's obviously in the film, they didn't have the rights for it to appear on the soundtrack, which Lewis's manager thought that this was a publicity stunt, and he was actually really angry about it because it was misreported as being like something that got pulled because the artist was like offended by the violence, and Huey Lewis is like, I didn't give a shit. This is all a publicity stunt. Like, that I had nothing to do with. So just FYI, fact check there. Huey Lewis and the News had no problem with the violence in this movie.
Clearing the air on that one.
Clearing the air.
Rumor.
The original score, because this has both regular soundtrack and score, composed by Velvet Underground co-founder John Cale.
Whoa,
also
that's
fucking
fun.
dope. Who also worked with Mary Herron on I Shot Andy Warhol and suggested using animal sounds like FBI recordings of screaming rabbits that they used during the siege on Waco to freak people out.
Oh, I was like, what in the FBI agents rabbit noises are we talking about
Yeah.
here?
So when the FBI was raiding the Branch Davidians compound, they played screaming rabbits to freak people out. And John Cale was like, why don't you put that in the background in some of the scenes to creep out the audience?
Love that.
Yeah. As far
you
as I
heard a
can
rabbit
tell,
scream?
I haven't. And I think it didn't make it into the final mix
And then
of the
putting
film.
on my chapstick and asking you this question.
Oh my God.
Have
What's
you
it
heard
like?
Horrifying, Sienna. The wails of a rabbit
Oh no.
are those coming straight from the depths
I need
of
you to know
hell.
that I just pictured a rabbit with like a whale's tail on it.
Oh
when
my
you
god,
said
the
that.
whales. The whale rabbits.
Yeah, the whale rabbits.
Also
Sorry,
terrifying.
guys.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh,
Got a
God.
thumbs up, doing a good job over there.
Good.
Oh,
So, according to IMDb, to prep for the threesome scene, I love this image so much. I love this so much, you guys. Apparently, Mary Harron and Christian Bale sat down and watched a bunch of porn together. And Bale makes stick figure drawings of the positions he thinks they should use on screen.
it's so innocent.
It's so sweet,
The
right?
relationship between Bale and Mary seems
It sounds just
lovely.
amazing. Yeah. Bale also wore nothing but tennis shoes and a sock for the nude scenes. Apparently stayed that way between takes and was totally comfortable.
It's so funny too. Those big ass fucking 90s shoes,
right?
Or 80s shoes.
Also, according to Mary Harron on the commentary track, the first time that Bale shot a shower scene, all of the women on set showed up to watch, which I had to shout out because gross, guys. Gross.
They had to
Respect
just do
privacy.
They had to do their part of like what they did on Night of the Living Dead.
Exactly. Just
They did
flip
reverse
the
it.
tables around.
Yeah.
Also, obviously, I'm sure you noticed, but in one of the scenes where Bateman's working out, he has Texas Chainsaw Massacre on the TV in the background, and then immediately after that is when he kills somebody with a chainsaw. So we got inspired.
Oh my god. Yeah, that's so true. I was like, you know what? That's a good idea.
Yep. Murder Moonwalk was improvised by Bale. Last scene features a sign saying this is not an exit, which is also the closing phrase of the novel. So it's a little shout out there.
Oh, the little sign behind him. Yeah. That was actually maybe again it's been a few years since I watched it, but like I really noticed that this time.
It's so
Yeah.
good. Also, apparently Chloe gave Christian Bale a 45 of Psycho Killer by Talking Heads as a rap gift.
Oh,
Which I just thought was really cute. I'm almost done. I'm just wrapping up. I know I've gone wildly over time, but also we knew it was going to happen on
Yeah.
this film. So premieres at Sundance, initially gets an NC-17 rating for the R-rated and theatrical edition, which was not the one I saw. Did you watch it on Amazon?
No.
Netflix.
Netflix.
Ah, yes. Okay. Yeah. My friend who watched with me also watched on Netflix.
Okay.
You saw the censored version.
Boo.
I saw the uncensored version. And what was cut from that was 18 seconds from the threesome scene. Primarily showing a blowjob. Because Lord knows we can chop up a
blowy.
man with an axe, but we can't show an oral
oral
scene. Which apparently they also, this is why I had the asshole reference earlier. They also changed the line in that scene where he asks one of the sex workers to bend over so he can see her asshole to say just bend over so I can see your ass. Which, yeah, just like, guys,
I know.
We know what it means.
It's so weird.
Like,
it's so weird. We can show all these other things,
Mhm.
but then these weird.
Yeah. So, quote from Heron on this. They said that it was the overall tone of the scene. This is her talking about what the MPAA made her cut.
Okay.
And she said it was disturbing because it's deliberately unerotic. It always comes down to taking out a few seconds of pelvic grinding, which in later interviews, she's even more pointed about the idea that it's not the sex people were uncomfortable with. It's the fact that she showed the sex workers not being into it, that they look so bored during it. She thinks that's what it was,
I'm
which
sure.
like to me, that's one of the best and most memorable parts of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what makes it so fucking great. They wouldn't. That's how it would. Can be. I should say, not would, but like
but
can
that's
be
realistic.
Yeah.
They also, okay, as we get into talking about the
that's the
marketing,
issue. Yeah.
two hilarious marketing gimmicks that I thought you would enjoy since we're on the
Yeah.
marketing team. They made, obviously this is 2000, this is at the beginning of internet marketing, so they make an online stock market game to coincide with the release called Make a Killing with American Psycho.
Oh my god, stop.
Yeah.
That's so cheesy.
They also,
They really thought they ate with that.
they really did. Even more so with this next one,
Oh, God.
which like, I want more info.
Okay.
They also got a service set up where you could sign up to receive emails from Patrick Bateman. These were addressed to his therapist, written by a writer who worked on the film. I couldn't find out who. If you know, let us know.
Yeah.
Approved by Ellis. and chart
Wow.
the events immediately after the movie, which strikes me as an odd choice. It's like him
Oh.
going on and getting married and having kids.
Whoa.
Bale himself hated this move, found it super cheesy, and said, "My main objection is that some people think it will be me returning these emails. I don't like that. I think the movie stands on its own merits and should attract an audience that can appreciate intelligent satire. It's not a
Yeah.
slasher flick, but it's also not American Pie. The marketing should reflect that. However, I think it's really funny. I think
I
it's
don't
got a
like that
great
they
move.
made him like move on. I think and have a family.
Yeah, I think make it be emails from Patrick Bateman while he's working at the firm. Like
Yeah.
during the events or before the
Yeah,
events of
almost
the
like
movie.
like a diary.
Like a
is, like,
diary.
sent-
Yeah, that I'd be interested in.
Yeah.
It makes 34 million back against that 7 million budget.
Wow. Holy shit.
There was a direct-to-video sequel called American Psycho 2 released 2 years later starring Mila Kunis.
Was it
which
2
is-
years after that? Yikesies.
Mhm.
No thanks.
Yeah, widely hated, including
Good.
by Mila Kunis, who's like
Good.
embarrassed that she was in it.
Good.
For a while, there was going to be a TV series, the modern day Bateman training like an apprentice to replace him. Thankfully, that seems to have been ended. This film, divisive, currently holds a 68% on Rotten Tomatoes, which I find absurdly low. But I think that's
Whoa.
largely due to the fact that it's so polarizing. I think you probably have a lot of people giving 5 stars and then a couple people giving 1 stars and very little in the middle. If you love it, you
I
love
love
it.
this
If you
one.
hate it, you think it's utter garbage. Audience score, though, is 85, which I
Okay,
think
that
anytime you
fits.
see that big of a discrepancy, that tells you the critics are missing something.
Yeah.
Which, of course, now it lives in this very like Fight Clubby space on the internet where it's like vastly misunderstood by a group of men who miss the mockery and see it as aspirational.
Yeah.
Which is why we can't have nice things like
I know,
satire.
Truly.
It's also had a long afterlife in music too. Children of Bodom sampled it.
I love Children of Bodom.
Thought so.
Yeah, seen them
Quoted
live.
in a Front Bottom song.
Just
There's
started listening to them too.
oh my god, I listened to a lot
Just
of the
discovered
Front
them, if
Bottoms
I'm
in high
honest.
school.
So, yeah.
It's been featured in music videos like Kanye's "Love Lockdown" is a
Also,
reference
we're
to
missing
this.
Ice Nine Kills.
That's what I was
also.
gonna
I should have waited. I'm so
Of
sorry.
course
Shut
I
up.
had that
That's
for
right.
you. Also,
what else, Sienna? Tell us.
Huey Lewis and the News teamed up with Weird Al Yankovic to do a parody of this.
Trav
Yeah.
freaking
Yes,
out back there.
Yeah, so watch that immediately afterwards. And of course, Al favorite, Ice Nine Kills has a song based on the film called Hip to Be Scared.
It's so good too,
Mhm.
and it starts out with like the do 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 do
Ugh.
do do do.
Oh
and
my
he does like he does like a
God.
little bit and stuff.
I
It's
love
so
that.
good. Chef's kiss. Everybody go listen to that song specifically, please.
So good.
Yeah.
And so Ellis himself has gone on. He started out kind of making like very disparaging comments on the film. He's come around to be more mixed on it, but still maintains that it didn't need to be made in the first
I don't give a
place.
shit about what this man says.
I don't care. I don't care. In general, I think a lot of critics praised Bale and criticized the violence, which given how much violence was cut from the source material, it's not actually a terribly violent movie.
But isn't that the move though? Dillon, same.
Yes. Yeah.
Praised Dillon,
Mhm.
hated the gore.
And so here's what I take from that. I kind of can't help but wonder how much of that is just this underlying moralizing coming from a place of, wait, but women aren't supposed to want to make stuff like this. Because I feel like had a man made this same movie that has really only 2 major bloody scenes, I don't think
Guys,
anybody
how
would be
wildly-
being like, oh, it's so violent.
Or do you think it's those men that like are like, this guy's supposed to be a good guy, so like why would they make
Yeah.
him seem like a bad guy? He's not
Maybe?
bad. He's not a
It-
bad guy.
honestly quite possible?
It's like
Oh
who
my
are you
God.
idolizing here?
Oh,
Serial killers.
uh,
Got it.
commentary. Oh, first of all, the I only get these sheets in Santa Fe line had to shout that
Oh
out
my God,
because
yeah.
anybody who says the commercialization of Santa Fe is a post-pandemic thing, this movie's from 2000. It was already happening
Truly.
back then.
I feel like more references were back then than now.
Truly. I have to shout out that the person I watched this with heard some of Bale's dialogue and was like, this just sounds like a bad dom. Like all of this just sounds like bad dom talking.
Truly.
And then finally to close out, because I know you have a football game to get on to.
Yeah, y'all.
I
I'm
just-
Detroit Lions. I'm wearing a shirt. I like football now.
Al's into sports ball.
Yeah, I'm back
I don't
into
know
sports.
how it works.
I know.
But to end, because we started this with my film theory rant corner, I want to end with a quote I found from Mary Herron herself.
Good.
That's kind of a
Sounds like her.
response, not directly to Ellis, but to the ways people talk about female directors that I just
Love.
thought was like a nice little
Yes.
button to close us out
Yeah.
with. So Herron says, women directors. Oh, I love this so much. I love this so much.
I like love her. I don't know anything about her.
She's a fucking icon. women directors don't have the danger of going mad with power. I actually think that's an advantage. It's better to live in the real world.
Eat it. Suck
Uh-huh,
on that,
uh-huh.
boys.
And she's saying this specifically in the context. Somebody was like asking her a question about Kubrick, and that was her response.
What?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That is a beautiful quote.
Yeah.
Yeah, chef's kiss.
Yeah. We don't have the risk of going mad with power.
It's true. It's so true.
Mm.
Claps
love.
for Mary.
Claps for Mary. Claps for American
Claps
Psycho.
for you. And us. We did it.
We did it.
Yeah.
I was fucking rushing, man. There's still so much that I didn't go over. That was just highlight reel.
One day we'll do bonus.
One
a
day.
bonus Jonas.
One day. We'll get there. I feel like I just talked for like an hour and a
No.
half straight. I'm so
It's like
sorry,
an
you guys.
hour.
But
It's like an hour. I talked an hour. Remember, I came in here. I'm like, I have 4 pages. I'm not going to be able to talk about anything. We can't ever say that.
So
I told
true.
you we don't know how to shut up,
so true.
and one of us is
So-
always going to find something. So I loved it.
Yes.
I mean, it's so good. I was so happy to revisit this one.
It's a perfect movie. It's a perfect movie.
Yeah.
It's also like one of those movies that's every genre rolled into
Yeah.
one, which is so hard to pull off.
It's just so fun, and it's so fun. I loved watching just really fucked up funny horror. I gotta say, it
It's
might be one of
so
my favorite
funny.
genres. I just love laughing at
Yep.
just brutal awfulness.
Especially laughing at dumb, violent men.
Ah, my
Love.
favorite.
Love.
My evil cackle.
So shall we
Um,
tell people what next episode is?
Yes, we have decided. We know.
Yeah. So I'm doing Black Christmas for y'all, the 74 version.
yeah.
And again, I'm showing it at the theater. Come watch with us.
yeah. Get tickets. JeanCocteauCinema.com. Those are up. And then I'm doing Krampus.
Yes.
Which I have not seen, and I've been dying for a chance to watch. We played at the cinema last year.
Yeah. And isn't it
Um,
the same director as Trick or Treat?
It is. Yes! It is. And I'm very excited about that. We are big fans of Krampus just as a general icon. We have a big 8-foot tall Krampus at Beastly Books. So if you're in Santa Fe and want a
Come
picture
see
with
the
Krampus,
Krampus.
yeah, it's there. But I'm excited just on a personal level to finally watch, because I think 2015.
Something like, yeah.
I'm
2015,
excited to
I think.
finally
Yeah.
fucking watch it.
It's about time.
So yeah,
The
so we're
time's
doing
come.
those. What else do we have going on? I
I think that's it.
we hope.
If not,
Yeah. Well,
we'll be the last
yeah,
to know.
we'll see on the internet about it.
Oh, really quick. I just want to say, for all of you who've made it this far, Mercury tidbit for you. A lot of you,
Oh my god, yeah. Thanks
Okay,
everyone for talking to us.
our liquid mercury fact blew up.
Yeah.
Some of y'all need to go back and retake high school chemistry, because some of y'all are convinced that mercury cannot move between states of matter. That's just how states of matter work. Yes, mercury is a liquid at room temperature. It still can become either a gas or a solid. Also, there are all kinds of different forms of mercury. There's mercury ore, which is always there. Point is, mercury can be a lot of different things, but we did have some amazing key grips right into us, which is the people who handle dollies and cranes.
Yeah, we're talking about Prince of
Darkness, thank
fact,
you.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to shout out, A, thank you all for
Yeah.
writing in. B,
It's so
thank you
cool.
all for finding the exact crane that they took the mercury from.
It's been a wild journey to
It was so
like,
cool.
find out and just
Yeah.
having actual people in the field.
It was amazing, because
So,
I
yeah.
wasn't able to. I don't think John Carpenter remembered what specific crane
Yeah,
they
he
got the
probably was just
mercury
like,
from, but y'all were able to do the research for me and found that it was specifically a Chapman-made crane. That was the company that made it. It was a hydraulic crane, and the mercury in that particular model was used as a counterweight. So I was incorrect in saying that it was part of the hydraulic system itself. It is a hydraulic crane. Mercury was not used in hydraulics. It was being used to outweigh the weight of the camera, because mercury is both very heavy and liquid at room temperatures.
I was gonna say, who is it? And that's why we drink. I think they have like or it's my favorite murder. They have like a corrections corner,
Oh
and
my
I
God,
feel
I love
like
that.
this
Our
is
little
our, like, our
corrections
little,
corner.
It's like our little fact corner,
Yeah.
our film fact corner.
Yeah, well, because I
Yeah.
loved that y'all, because I tried to find what the crane was and I couldn't find it.
Yeah.
But y'all are,
I know. I love
some of
it.
y'all are the
Keep
experts.
Keep
so,
sleuthing.
yeah, I
love
fucking
it.
love it.
Please
So
teach
thank
us
you all.
things sometimes. It's
Truly.
really fucking awesome.
I love it when you write in with more info than I
Yeah,
have.
yeah. It fills out the story for us when we
Totally.
only have so many so many hours to cover stuff. So yeah,
Yeah.
please keep letting us know.
Yeah,
things.
so
I love
just
it.
wanted to give that extra little
Yeah,
tidbit.
I love
Thanks
that.
to you.
Yeah. Until then, thanks for listening.
Thank you so much for listening to Splice and Splatter, the film podcast presented by the Jean Cocteau Cinema in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where classic horror.
Modern gore. Oh god, I hit my mic. Thank you. Oh, we gotta thank these guys for our late night recording. Truly. It was dark outside. Thank you, Warren Langford, for doing a late night.
We love you.
Thank you, Travis Fowler, for giving thumbs up and doing a late night. Theo Schaefer, you're just chilling, but thanks for the music.
We love you from a distance.
We love you from a distance.
I don't know what I'm doing with my blood drop, but it's kind of weirding me out.
I know, with the two of us. We've just been fidgeting with these the whole time. Until then, thanks, Rebecca.
Thanks,
these
Rebecca.
are so
I
fucking
love
awesome.
it.
I think this might
name
be
them.
I know.
Write in with name ideas
for
a blood drops.
Truly, just Siena now.
Yes.
Until then,
we'll be right back.